strengthen asylum programs to people facing persecution for their sexual orientation throughout the world. The resolution, authored by council members Bonin and O'Farrell, passed unanimously.
So I stand with my brothers, council members Bonin and Council Member O'Farrell.
But I have to say I take this very personally, not just as a member of the LGBT community, but also as one who is the descendant of Russians. Actually, 3 of my 4 grandparents were from Russia.
A message of protest by LA city leaders sent to Russia with love. Outside City Hall, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
Mayor Garcetti is also campaigning to get other U.S. cities to sign a joint statement condemning St. Petersburg. New stars are being born at this award show, but to win, you need Made in Hollywood credentials. Anna Marcos takes us to the red carpet for the Made in Hollywood Awards.
Lights, camera, action. The paparazzi are out, and so is the red carpet. The star of this Hollywood affair is any entertainment industry production made in Hollywood. The Made in Hollywood Awards, a yearly gala affair, have previously honored films made here. But this time, new starlets make their appearance. Homegrown, Emmy-nominated TV shows.
It's important because we really want to keep bringing production back to Los Angeles, to Hollywood. I mean, this is really where it all began.
Let's just keep it in Hollywood and keep the costs down.
The winners include comedies, dramas, reality shows, and children's shows. Any show that's produced right here in Tinseltown.
But it's made in Hollywood. It's our people who are working. We want to keep people working in L.A.
Former Made in Hollywood winners include the films The Artist and Argo. Some of this year's TV show winners include Modern Family, Mad Men, Big Bang Theory, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Dancing with the Stars, and iCarly. It's an award that comes just in time for the Emmy.
Maybe it's a good omen because Argo was the recipient last year of this award, of the Made in Hollywood, and it went on to win the Best Picture. So I think, and now we're opening up to television production, so I think if you actually get this award, this Made in Hollywood award, I think there's a good chance you're going to win the Oscar or the Emmys.
But there's a more serious reason for the Made in Hollywood Awards than just another party. Organizers hope the awards provide an incentive to help stop runaway production in Hollywood.
It's important. It's something that I ran on, to bring the entertainment industry back and to stop the bleeding of runaway production.
Nobody wants to shoot out of L.A. I think it's only about money. I think it's about tax incentives and, you know, now places like Austin and Connecticut and New York again are offering enormous tax incentives for productions to move there.
Many of the incentives to stop runaway production will have to come from the state level. But Mayor Eric Garcetti, along with council members Mitch O'Farrell and Tom LaBonge, have pledged to do something about runaway production so that Hollywood continues to shine in all its red carpet glory. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
Altogether, 15 Emmy-nominated TV shows received Made in Hollywood awards. The event was co-sponsored by the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce and local business leaders. Some residents consider the LA Public Library one of the city's greatest resources, and the person responsible for making sure the library system stays that way is City Librarian John Szabo. Rasha Goel reports.
Don't judge a book by its cover is a proverb that holds true when you come to the Central Library here in downtown Los Angeles. It's a place full of resources, knowledge, and books. And for one man, it's a place that holds new adventures every day. Meet John Szabo, the city librarian of the Los Angeles Public Library. As city librarian, he oversees the Central Library, 72 branches, and the library's $124 million budget.
I have the best job in Los Angeles, I think. This is a loved institution by Angelenos and a very, very well-used institution. It's used in so many different ways. We're certainly all about the 6 million volumes that we have at all all of our libraries, and we circulate an enormous amount of print material each year, and it is a popular traditional service of the library. But there's so many other ways that we touch the residents of the city.
The Los Angeles Public Library is one of the busiest libraries, serving over 4 million people, the largest population of any library in the United States.
A lot of my work is personnel related. It's certainly budget, but it's also telling the story of the Los Angeles Public Library and the work that we do to community partners, to organizations, to neighborhood groups, talking about the good work that is being done in the library.
With more than 20 years of leadership experience in public libraries, John Szabo ensures there is something for everyone.
Our staff are incredibly creative, from our children's librarians to our teen librarians to our adult librarians and branch managers, and they always are developing new programs for all ages to connect with the community.
Online and offline, there are resources for readers of all ages.
All 73 of our libraries have citizenship corners, places where there are resources in a variety of formats and languages about how to take that first step on the path to U.S. citizenship.
Of course, managing 73 libraries and living in a tech-savvy world does come with some challenges.
It's also important that the library stay on the cutting edge with new technologies and continue to make it available. And we have an important role in terms of digital literacy.
While the city librarian does have a full plate, don't be surprised to find him in some of his own favorite corners of the library.
I love going into the history and genealogy section. I love seeing the exhibits, and I love to wander the stacks too, and find wonderful treasures just by happenstance and check them out and make use of them.
With millions of books to choose from, the treasures are sure to keep on coming. From the Central Library in downtown L.A., I'm Rasha Goel for L.A. This Week.
Last year, the library system recorded 12.7 million visits, and its website got more than 95 million hits. Wow. City leaders continue to move forward in their push to revitalize the LA River, and now some USC students are taking a fresh look at those efforts with an exhibit at City Hall. Anna Marcos has more.
Nature, the environment, water, and people. Getting those forces to live in harmony is the focus of this new exhibit by students from the USC School of Architecture.
We call it urban nature. It's the city in nature, our nature in nature.
The LA River, the Urban Mosaic, is an exhibit that studies ways man and nature can coexist on the LA River, and it is now on show at City Hall.
So it's both managing the water and preventing the floods, but also allowing the river to be really great habitat for birds and wildlife and habitat for human beings.
The students who helped create the study were surprised at how much life exists on the river in spite of the concrete channel and chain link fences.
Seems like it's a place that's far away from people, but when we went there, it's kind of nice with sandbars, and actually there is habitat.
The city's becoming denser and denser, and green space is going to be much more valuable in the future, and it's going to be the way of how we can begin to keep, the synergy of living in the city, in this urban city, with nature, still maintaining this relationship.
And city leaders are determined to turn this neglected channel into the river of the future. They are working to secure federal grants to clean up the LA River, restore it to its natural beauty, and increase recreational opportunities.
We need to really dream big and reach for the stars here, because who knows, it could end up in a $1 billion federal grant. And that's what we're working toward.
It'll change the face of the city. It'll create relief. It'll create jobs. But more importantly, it'll sustain an environment for our grandchildren.
We need many more projects like this to help us think the vision of the future.
It all starts with that vision of the future, and this exhibit makes it clear the work has already begun. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
Limited recreational opportunities have already begun on the LA River. There are kayak tours available during the summer months. The City Council has approved a motion to study fixing LA streets and how to pay for the much-needed repairs. Cracked streets and potholes are nothing new in LA. What is new? A city council plan that explores ways to raise the billions of dollars needed to fix those broken roads.
Our streets are in failed condition. Nearly a third of our streets are in failed conditions.
After months of researching the problem, city council members Joe Buscaino and Mitch Englander came up with an action plan they call Save Our Streets LA.
This is how we spent our summer vacation. We wrote a book to each and every one of you. We're happy to sit and autograph it for you afterwards, and this will be our official book signing. But with this book is a roadmap to fix our streets.
Their presentation showed 38% of LA's roads need to be completely reconstructed. It also said those mangled streets, they don't just cost the city money, they cost you too with wear and tear on your car.
Los Angeles drivers pay an additional $746 in operating costs. Repairs and maintenance, increased fuel consumption, tire wear. You know, when you go through a pothole in the city of Los Angeles, not only you feel it, but you also hear it.
So how do you raise the $3 billion needed to make those repairs over the next 10 years?
We're asking for various revenue streams to identify the obstacles and solutions to overcome them, from use fees, federal and state grants, the waste hauling franchise fee, and putting it on them as well. Developer agreements, spreading the cost to all residents, which is one thing that everybody shared. A local gas tax or vehicle registration fee or tolls where they make sense and where they're applicable, as well as partnerships with nonprofits, which is key.
Later, the council voted unanimously to ask for a report within 45 days that would outline the streets most in need of repaving.
Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
15 ayes, so ordered.
City officials say at the current rate of repairs, it would take 60 years to make all the necessary upgrades. The mayor takes time to train with the Navy Reserve, fighting crime in Griffith Park, and a special message for the immigrant community, all this week on City Beat. If you haven't seen Mayor Eric Garcetti lately, there's a reason. As a member of the U.S. Navy Reserve, the mayor is doing his annual 2-week training period, which ends on August 30th. Garcetti enlisted in 2005 and is an intelligence officer with the rank of lieutenant. During his training period, he'll remain in the L.A. area and continue to meet his city commitments, though with a reduced public schedule. Once his current enlistment is up this year, Garcetti has requested a status change to inactive Ready Reserve. That means he'll retain his rank, but will no longer be required to take part in monthly or annual drills. Garcetti can return to active status at a later date. After a recent rash of vehicle-related crimes in Griffith Park, 4th District Councilman Tom LaBonge and the LAPD unveiled new Lock It, Hide It, Keep It signs. They're meant to remind park visitors to watch their valuables.
We just want to bring public awareness throughout the city. Anywhere it is, there is some burglary for motor vehicle problems. It's spiked up. We're suppressing it.
In June and July, there were 17 car-related crimes in Griffith Park, including break-ins and grand theft auto. 1st District Councilman Gil Cedillo recently hosted a mini-summit with representatives from both the Central American community and the LAPD. The gathering focused on issues important to that community, including the city's controversial Special Order 7.
It was a response to a practice that took place in this district and in the city, where for 5 years, immigrants were having their cars towed and impounded to the cost of $100 million to the immigrant community, to a community that could hardly afford it, a low-income community, a working class, and a working poor community.
Special Order 7, issued by LA's Board of Police Commissioners, allows the LAPD to release impounded cars of unlicensed drivers. It was implemented last year, but a Superior Court judge recently struck the policy down, saying it was invalid under state law. That decision is now under appeal.
And we have been informed that Special Order 7 will remain in place, that we can inform the public that they should not be scared, they should not be concerned, that Special Order 7 remains intact.
A renovated hotel becomes a place of hope for seniors. Residents and city officials recently celebrated the building's open house. Rasha Goel has that story.
Parkview on the Park may look like just another apartment building, but for the residents who live here, it's a special place.
It's part of a broad strategy that we've begun to employ to make sure that we can take people off the streets and provide them a safe, secure, dignified, and respectful place to live.
The Affordable Housing Project is a permanent home for formerly homeless seniors or those seniors at risk of being homeless, including military veterans.
You are part of this change, this historic change in how we address people who have challenges and needs with dignity and with respect.
The building was developed by the Los Angeles Housing Partnership, a nonprofit organization that creates affordable housing for homeless and low-income families.
What it is basically 79 units of senior housing and one two-bedroom manager's unit. What this property is essentially an adaptive reuse of the Parkview Hotel, which was built in the 1920s.
I really enjoy it because, like I said, I have a roof over my head, I have a kitchen, and everything.
In addition to providing a place to live, Parkview on the Park also provides social services to ensure residents don't return to the streets. I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
The building is located across from MacArthur Park and has been converted into a modern transit-oriented community. A coalition between the LAPD Southeast Division and the National Guard's Sunburst Youth Academy is giving at-risk young people a second chance. Cindy San Luis takes us to the LAPD's Southeast Station with more.
Potential high school dropouts are getting an invaluable gift to reclaim their lives. Through mentorship by the LAPD and the National Guard at the Sunburst Youth Academy in Los Alamitos.
I was at 0 credits, barely going to high school, sometimes, not even showing up to classes.
But since his participation, Isidoro Rivera's life has taken a 180.
They teach you a lot of things, They teach you how to control your anger, what's best to do in a situation. Some schools, they just, tell you to do it. This school, actually shows you and it makes you do it.
Through the program, potential dropouts are turned into cadets and make up a year's worth of credits during a 5-month residence at the academy. There's a 1-year post-residential follow-up component to keep kids on the path to success. Youth are also given scholarships to college or trade schools.
I got to meet some new people. I got to get a different perspective of life. I got to live a different life, a military lifestyle, and it was just, it was really fun.
Teens from the Imperial, Jordan, and Avalon developments are also prime candidates for this program.
I'm trying to better myself for the good of my family and get out of trouble.
They don't have a lot of the opportunities some of the other kids have as far as education, as far as learning some of the basic fundamental skills that a lot of kids, in other areas, take for granted.
Rivera is thankful for his coveted spot in the academy and warns others only to join if they will be 100% committed to changing their lives for the better.
If you want to join Sunburst, make sure you actually want to do it and actually complete it, because if you don't, you're actually taking up the spot of a lot of other kids who actually do want to go.
It teaches them in life, no matter what they do, they'll learn the discipline, they'll learn the fortitude, they'll learn the basic, working skills to compete with other, folks as they get older in society.
With a 95% success rate and no charge to families the LAPD refers, the program is very popular. The next class starts in January 2014. Over 1,000 applications will be sent in, but only 200 cadets will be accepted. I'm Cindy San Luis for LA This Week.
For more information on the Academy, go to sunburstyouthacademy.com. Hollywood glamour, exotic dance, and spellbinding magic. They're all part of the picture on this week's edition of Things to Do.
If you're looking for a laugh, what better place to look than the Meatballs of Comedy? Every Friday night at Victorio's Ristorante in North Hollywood. The Meatballs of Comedy features America's funniest Italian comedians. If you're not Italian, you just might think you are by the end of the evening. The fun starts at 8 p.m. and reservations are recommended. Victorio's Ristorante is located at 10901 Victory Boulevard in North Hollywood. For more information, check out the meatballsofcomedy.com. If you're looking for glamour this Labor Day weekend, stop by the Hollywood Museum for one of your last chances to see Marilyn Monroe, the exhibit, the largest display of authentic memorabilia of Marilyn's life and legacy. The exhibit features costumes, jewelry, furs, and accessories from her films, her personal wardrobe, and her 1961 Fleetwood Cadillac, given as a gift from 20th Century Fox mogul Darryl F. Zanuck. The Hollywood Museum is located in the historic Max Factor building at 1660 North Highland Avenue in Hollywood. For more information, visit the website at thehollywoodmuseum.com. If you're in the mood for something more exotic, head over to the John Anson Ford Amphitheater Saturday morning for the CalArts Balinese Dance Ensemble, a celebration of the tropical island of Bali, where music and dance are an integral part of the culture. The ensemble honors a rich culture of the island with traditional instruments and elaborate, colorful costumes. Children under 12 are free to this event, and tickets for adults are only $5. The Ford Theaters are located at 2580 Cahuenga Boulevard East. For more information, be sure to visit fordtheaters.org. Ready to put some magic in your life? In Studio City this Sunday at 3 p.m., catch a matinee of Carney Magic, a theater show that blends mind-blowing sleight of hand with intelligence, taste, and wit, resulting in nothing less than pure entertainment. While not a kiddie show, it is family-friendly. Catch one of the two last performances of Carney Magic at the Two Roads Theater in Studio City at 4348 Tujunga Avenue. For more information, go to carneymagic.com. You want more magic? Well, you've come to the right place. Smoke and Mirrors, playing at the Road Theater in North Hollywood, isn't just a heartfelt comic drama. It's drama with mind-bending magic, audience participation, and themes of love, loss, and, yes, magic. Created by and starring actor Albie Selznick, Smoke and Mirrors plays at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday, and Sunday at 3 p.m. The Road Theater is located at 5108 Lankershim Boulevard in North Hollywood. For more information, go to smokeandmirrorsmagic.com. And that's a look at some upcoming things to do.
Downtown LA's Grand Park is hosting this year's Movies in the Park series throughout the summer. And Gil Reyes reports the movies are free.
With LA City Hall as the backdrop, families gather at nearby Grand Park for free movies under the stars.
We actually have some friends that are visiting from out of town, and so we're looking for something to do in the area.
LA's Movies in the Park series is back, featuring family-friendly films like Jurassic Park and E.T. So pack the blanket and bring the snacks.
We do have a metro stop here in Grand Park, which is on the red and the purple line, and it's the stop is Civic Center. And that drops you off right here in the park, so you can take the metro.
This summertime tradition is all about family, friends, and new friends getting together.
Now our kids know each other, which is kind of fun. I mean, and they've gotten along. The boys just met today, and they're already really good friends.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy a free summer movie on us while it lasts. At Grand Park in downtown LA, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
The screenings are held every Saturday night through September 14th. For a list of the films and showtimes, log on to grandparkla.org. And that's going to do it for this edition of LA This Week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bennett, and we want to remind you that you can catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
Need a recycling center? Call 311, the toll-free number for non-emergency services. 311, your one call to City Hall.
Hi, I'm Nina. This is my daughter Miranda, and we live in Silver Lake. We love the cultural diversity of Los Angeles. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35. Our city, our channel.
Good morning, good morning. Shh. I want to ask everyone if you please take a seat. Welcome to your Los Angeles City Council. It is Wednesday, August 28th. This council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. Mr. Clerk, I believe we have a quorum. Could you please call the roll?
Blumenfield, Bonham, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Fuentes, Huizar, Carrasco, Corrigan, Labange, Martinez, O'Farrell, Parks, Price, Weston, 11 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Labange moves. Mr. Huizar seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. O'Farrell moves. Mr. Parks seconds. Next.
Mr. President, we have requests from the Office of Finance to receive and file item 1A inasmuch as the liability has been resolved, and to continue item 1B to September 11.
Okay, do we have any cards on those items?
Yes, sir, we do.
So do we, Mr. City Attorney, still have to take the comment, or we can just... Okay, then without objection, that'll be the order.
Very good, sir. That brings us to items 2 through 7. They're items noticed for public hearing. Item 7 was submitted without recommendation, and a motion is required.
Okay. So we're now 2 through 7. Mr. Huizar.
Special, please.
Okay, let's hold 7 for Mr. Huizar. Members, do we have cards?
No, sir.
Okay, what was the item we needed a motion on?
Item 7, that's currently being held for Councilmember Huizar.
Okay, so then I will let him sort that out.
And Mr. President, if I may, we do have cards on item 7 as well.
Okay, we do? All right.
Yes, sir.
So we'll hold that. Let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, that brings us where, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. President, if I may, before moving ahead, those ordinances will go over 1 week unless reconsidered at a later time with 12 members.
Okay, it's my understanding that in a little while we will have 12 members or better. At that time, we will reconsider those items and we'll move them through. Mr. Buscaino.
Request from Mr. Cedillo. We need to hold item 11 and 21, please. Is that right? 11, 21.
And Mr. President, that brings us to items 8 through 23. They're items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay, so per Mr. Buscaino, what items again? 11 and 21. Okay, let's hold 11 and 21 for Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Labange, I see you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. President. 8 and 10, if we could do those together, and I'd like to ask for a 10-minute public hearing. Now, we did have a hearing in committee, but there's some people who
Okay, let's do this. Let's make sure we take them up together. Then you and I will chat for 2 minutes and determine the length of the hearing.
Thank you. 8 and 10.
Okay, any other specials? Okay, let's prepare to vote. Madam Clerk, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, that brings us to where?
Mr. President, that brings us to items 24 through 32. They're items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, without objection, those items are now before us. Mr. Englander.
A verbal amendment on 31. I can either make it very quickly.
Why don't you make it very quickly?
Very quickly.
Wait.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, if I may, we do have cards on 31, so that item will be called special.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we'll just hold that.
I'll come back to it.
And then you'll give your amendment. Okay, what other items do we have cards on?
Mr. President, we have cards on items 25, 26, 29, 30, 31, and 32.
Does that leave anything else to vote on?
3 items, sir. 24,
Okay.
27, and 28.
Specials members, okay, let's prepare to vote on those remaining 3 items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, next we have closed session items. Mr. Clerk, what I'll do is why don't we just hold these for a bit until Mr. Krikorian comes in, and we'll see what we can move and not. So let's just hold them until he arrives.
Very good, sir.
Hold them until he arrives. Okay, Mr. Labange.
Special one? Yeah, did you do special one?
Oh, it has not been circulated as of yet.
Yeah, I gave it to all of them. They're working on it. All right, let's finish.
Is this coming right now?
Mr. Buscaino, are you ready, or you want to wait a little while?
We are ready, sir.
Okay, then at this point, I will turn the floor over to you.
Before I dive into my presentation that we've been all waiting for, I want to recognize and introduce a first-timer here in the John Ferraro Chambers, Mr. Darren Parker, the president of the California State Black Caucus. Darren, thank you for joining us.
Oh, friend of mine.
With that, Mr. President, it's with great pleasure that I welcome to the floor the men of the San Pedro Beacon House. They're going to bring in some socks.
Turn around, Mr.
Here they are.
Here they are.
All right. They're going to hang around here? Okay. Right, put them on the table. So give me one. Put them right here.
Good job.
You guys want to put the rest of them on the table? And just hang out with me.
Yeah.
Wow.
You got it for the movie. It's a Wonderful Life.
How's this, Tom? Is this a good photo op, Tom?
Looks good.
We go with that?
Get the young men right around you.
Get around me. Cool. Look at these shirts.
Yeah.
Let's give Beacon House a round of applause. Beacon House, an incredible program in San Pedro on the road to recovery. Colleagues, as you know, 2 weeks ago we launched the LA City Council Socks Drive as a way to pay forward our sock gift given to us by Council President Herb Wesson. Today, as you see before you, thousands of socks have flooded our individual offices as a response to our call for donations. Today, this body will not only always agrees on the many things that come before us. However, this sock drive serves to illustrate that we have a tremendous opportunity to engage our networks and our residents to come together for the common good. Collectively as a body, in only 2 short weeks, using mostly social media, we were able to generate over 15,000 pairs of socks that will be donated to the Midnight Mission.
Let's give him a round
for
of applause.
citywide
well done.
distribution. I'd like to thank a few people in our community who've stepped up and led the charge. The students of Dana Middle School, Miss Crow's leadership class in San Pedro for donating 500 pairs. Students at Harry Bridges Elementary School, Gulf Avenue Elementary School in Wilmington for donating 500 pairs. San Pedro High School, Miss Carcamo's leadership class. Collectively, CD15 brought in approximately 5,000 pairs of socks. And also like to thank Mr. Sid Makustian for his work in engaging downtown Los Angeles businesses who donated over 7,000 pairs of socks. They include LA Investment Company, John Bonney, Paragon Parking, St. Vincent Deli, Savon Garden and Barbecue House, Tulip Cafe Mediterranean Restaurant, Farid Restaurant Persian Cuisine, Le Cafe Bonjour Espresso Bar, Garo's Deli, Super Grill Restaurant, Pizza Italia, 7 Star Coffee, St. Vincent Barber Shop. And we had a business, Mr. President.
You know what, Mr. Buscaino, they deserve a round of applause. Come on, members and people that donated over 7,000 socks to people who truly need them.
And a number of our businesses in our respective districts matched the amount of donations. Specifically in my district, I want to give a shout out to Urban Feet and Skate, who matched all the donations, and Otto Henke, thank you very much.
Although he couldn't be with us in person, Mr. President and members, we have a short video you're about to see from Larry Adamson, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Midnight Mission, followed by Maya Lee, who's here, who will say a few words. If we can play the video, Channel 35, I'd appreciate it. It's a quick 2-minute video.
I'm Larry Adamson, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Midnight Mission. For 99 years, the Midnight Mission has been providing services, essential services, to the people of Los Angeles, and particularly those that suffer from being on our streets and in a condition of homelessness. Today, the Midnight Mission is one of the vital partners in providing essential subsistence to the people of Los Angeles. We're proud this year and last year to have served as many as 1 million meals out of this facility to Angelenos in need. We also are one of the largest drug and alcohol rehabilitation centers serving the public as well. We have been doing this without regard for government support now in the entire entity's history. We are so proud of the work that we do, the lives that we change, the people that come through our doors each day, that we make a difference in their lives. We give them and provide them with the opportunity to rejoin our community as a productive member. And today is a great day for us to be here with you, with the City Council of Los Angeles, to join together in helping people. We thank you for recognizing the need of those that are suffering from homelessness here in our community by providing these socks. You know, we might not think socks are a big issue in our lives, but for a homeless person, a new pair of fresh socks is the difference between a good day and a bad. And today, this City Council, through a lot of very friendly competition, is going to make a difference in so many people's lives. To us, maybe it's just socks. To them, it is a new day. And let me make it clear, although we're the recipient today of the socks donation in your charity, all of these socks will be distributed through the entire homeless network citywide. And thank you so very, very much.
Great.
Labange, I don't understand why you didn't win this competition. I'm really, really disappointed.
Thank you, Mr. Adamson. Yeah, Adamson. And here to say a few words is Mai Lee, the mission's Public Affairs Director. Mai.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the Midnight Mission Board of Directors, staff, and the people that we serve, we thank you so much for recognizing the need of the community as well as the individuals that walk through our door every day. Now, if I can get some volunteers to help me carry all the socks out, that would be great. I do want to iterate that the socks will be shared within our GIK network, that's our in-kind network, and that it will be impacted throughout the city. So thank you again so much, and we hope to be of service to everyone here. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. You know, Mr. President, what started out as a gift from you to the members turned out to be a donation to those that need the help in our city. And we in the city of Los Angeles, we are a city of hope, a city of love, a city who gives back to those in need. And I'm really thankful, colleagues, to partner with each and every one of you and to help those across our city. And I want to thank you, Mr. Wesson, for giving us this opportunity to do just that. So with that, thanks again for all your participation.
I have a couple of members,
yes, sir.
Joy B, on the queue. Thank you for taking a fun idea and turning it into over 15,000 pairs of socks for needy people. Okay, with that said, I want to recognize Mr. Englander.
Thank you very much. And I, too, want to stand and thank you, Mr. President, for coming up with the idea. Joe, for running with this, literally barefoot, and raising all these socks. I'd like to see this as an annual event. And I think this is a great thing. The community really weighed in on this. And as you said, a lot of this was done with social media. We had a lot of partners as well that I'd like to thank.
Yes.
And my wife, Jane, who really got into this, emptied my sock drawer, went out to the stores, started knocking on doors. Target in our district became a sponsor, as well as the North Valley Family YMCA, Northridge Middle School, and all the kids got involved in this as well. And Coldwell Banker of Porter Ranch. We ended up raising 6,014 socks out of our district.
All right.
Now, if you pair those, though, it's 3,007, but individually 6,014 socks. Just want to make sure that you understand the math. And this was not only a fun thing to do, but an important thing, a symbolic thing, because it really set out there that there are so many in Los Angeles here in need that they can't even afford socks, and how important it is. And it put another emphasis on the idea that we are all one city, that we can all come together citywide and raise good things for a good cause for the people here that have the least. And I want to thank you again. I think it really brought us all together, not only as a city, as a council, as a community, but also our city family, the staff, everybody who got involved in it, all the various departments. It's a lot of fun, but I'd like to see this done annually. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Labange.
Thank you for the gift that you gave us, but Joe, one more. Oh, come on, Joe, you got to catch that. You got to dive for it.
Coming.
And thank the Beacon House. Thank the Beacon House, all the work. All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Who's going to do that?
Brandimir Kovarczyk, my communication director, really took the lead on this.
No, he was great. Give Brandimir a round of applause.
We love you for your guidance on this.
Mr. Bonin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Bruscaino, I want to thank you for taking the lead on this. We saw back in June that you might not be victorious when it comes to a competition on a spin bike, but in collecting socks, you're definitely a champ. I want to thank three folks from my district who really stepped up on this in particular. From all parts of CD11, Steve Wallace from Mar Vista works for a company called Medicool, and he donated not only 650 pairs of socks, but they're special diabetic socks. So that's particularly useful. Thank you. Wendy Sue Rosen and the Mandeville Canyon Association threw in about 300 pair. And I also want to thank Denny Schneider is in the audience. Denny, would you stand up?
All right. Denny.
Denny Schneider donated more than 130 pair in memory of his wife, Nan, who passed away a few months ago, a phenomenal community leader.
Give Mr. Schneider a round of applause. I should have known you would do something like that. Good to see you again.
Mr. Bruscaino, I'd actually like to come up with an additional donation. It just occurred to me, as I'm looking at all these socks, they all look to be, for the most part, adult socks. And one of the things I think we too often forget in Los Angeles is we have a large and growing population of homeless children. So I'm going to go out later today and buy some children's socks and add this to the donation.
Yes,
Thank
fantastic,
you.
Mike. Fantastic.
Mr. Bruscaino, back to you.
Well, with that, Mr. President, we said it all along. It's paying it forward, and your gift to us allowed us to give the gift of socks to all of those that are in need in the city of Los Angeles. I'm just proud to be a part of this city. Again, a city that gives back, a city of faith, a city of love, and a city of hope. So with that, thank you, God bless you, and thanks to all of those folks who donated socks, and we have our work cut out to transport these socks over to the Midnight Mission. And thanks to our media partners as well who helped get the word out as well. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
We are a city of angels, as Tom reminds us. That's who we are.
Thank you, Mr. Bruscaino.
All right, guys.
Okay, let's quickly vote, members, on reconsideration of our ordinances. So this first vote is on reconsideration. Let's open the roll.
And Mr. President, those are items 2 through 6.
Okay, thank you. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, now we will actually vote on the items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay. Mr. Krikorian. In fact, can we check Avak? I'm checking on Mr. Labange's special. If somebody could tell me where Where are we with that, and when is that going to be circulated? Because we have the family here. It's being circulated now. Mr. Krikorian, on the closed session items, would you like to recommend how this council proceed?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Items 33 and 35, member had questions about, so I'd like to hold those on the desk for the moment.
33 and 35?
Yes. Items 34, 36, and 37 were heard in Budget and Finance, and the committee recommends approval of the recommendations of the City Attorney.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Clerk, if you could please read those items.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, I believe the City Attorney wanted to address item 34.
Go right ahead, Mr. City Attorney.
On item 34, the Budget and Finance Committee recommended that legal counsel be given direction on how to proceed in this litigation, and there is a recommendation from committee to urge the City Council's adoption of that recommendation.
Thank you. So can we move on to the other two items?
Mr. President, for item 36, in the case entitled Blaine Blackstone versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $145,982.60 plus accrued interest in settlement. For item 37, in the case entitled Oscar David Batsiat versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $251,276.18 with $71,749.18 subject to interest in settlement.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk and Mr. City Attorney. Let's now prepare to vote on those items. Let us please, Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Mr. Krikorian, did you?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Item 35 also was heard in committee. The committee recommends approval of the City Attorney's recommendations, and the members' concerns were resolved. So we only have 33 still to remain on the desk.
Okay, so Mr. Clerk, let's do item 35.
Yes, sir. In the case entitled Gabriel Fajardo versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $175,000 in settlement.
Okay, Madam Clerk, prepare to open the roll. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Then that is approved. Do we have Mr. Labange's special properly circulated?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, then at this time, for a very serious moment, I'd like to turn this over to Tom Labange, and we have members of the family here today. Mr. City Attorney, do you need to? Okay. Mr. Labange, let the City Attorney speak to the findings.
Thank you.
Since the posting of today's agenda, the LAPD has requested that City Council offer a reward for information leading to the arrest of the suspect in the hit-and-run death of, I don't have the name right in front of me. The incident occurred August 18th at 1:45 a.m. On Ventura Boulevard. Immediate action is required in order to apprehend the suspect. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Okay, let's vote on the findings. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, now let's deal with the issue. Mr. Labange.
Mr. President, today I ask for your support, which your council always gives. A tragedy occurred at 1:45 a.m. on Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks, where Ernesto Melendez, 22 years old, a great graduate of Fulton Prep in Van Nuys, a great student at Pierce College, having dinner with friends, was getting back into his car. Another vehicle, a gray Hyundai Tucson, struck him and left the scene of the accident. Tragically, Ernesto passed in this incident. Valley Traffic Area has come to the City Council asking us to offer a reward for the arrest and conviction of the individual who caused this tragedy. You're going to hear later from his sister Patricia, but I'm going to ask Detective Bill Bustos to speak. I also want to let you know this tragedy is the second time this family's been struck. Her mother was killed in a traffic accident, but the driver did stop. So she had the blessing of having closure and a tragedy in the Van Nuys area 7 years ago. But this other night, the person left the scene, and we need the public's help to find him. Detective Bill Bustos.
Thank you, Mr. LaBranche. Good morning, Mr. President, honorable council members. On August the 18th at about 1:45 in the morning, Mr. Ernesto Melendez and his girlfriend were out having dinner. Upon leaving, Mr. Melendez opened the door for his girlfriend to enter the car, and as he was coming around to get into his driver's side door, assisted by a parking lot attendant, this vehicle that Mr. LaBranche described, Hyundai Tucson 2010 to 2013, struck Mr. Melendez, launching him forward, leaving him gravely injured, and unfortunately that driver left with that vehicle, not to be seen anymore. Unfortunately, Mr. Melendez, some 15 hours later, lost his life at the hospital. We responded to conduct the investigation, and unfortunately at this point we've run out of leads, and that's why we're here to ask for your support and reward that we hope that serve as a financial incentive for somebody to come forward to give us the lead that we need to locate that driver and that vehicle. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. And Mr. President, I want to ask the Sister Patricia speak. Patricia Lasade, who's going through a lot of trouble now because her brother was taken without closure on this. Patricia, please speak right here.
I don't have no words to explain what I'm feeling right now. My brother, only 22 years old, lost his life. And the person who did this didn't even bother to stop. I just want closure.
Take your time.
Like he said, 7 years ago, I lost my mom. And the only person I had was my brother. No. He was taken from me. Ernie was a really nice guy. He had a lot of things he wanted to do, and he had a great future. He was doing everything. He was accomplishing so many things. I just need the help from you guys so they could get the person.
Thank you, Patricia. Want to speak again? You're okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Members, I thank you, Mr. President. This is a family that needs help, and we could help them. And the public could really help them. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Madam Clerk, just prepare to vote on this issue. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
It passes. And forthwith. Thank you. Thank you all for taking time from your busy schedules to be here with us today. Mr. Okay, let's item 25 we'll go to now was held special by cards. Mr. Arnold Sachs, if you please come forward, and Mr. John Walsh. Mr. Arnold Sachs and John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at Hollywood Highlands, HIGHLANDS.org, or J. Walsh Confidential. This concerns establishing on item 25 hearing date for the maintenance of the lighting district. I think LA does a fairly good job, especially once we got rid of the carbon arc lights. They were insane. We do need more lighting on side streets. Come to Hollywood. We have the best lit side streets in Los Angeles. And the reason we do is that neighborhood activists for the past 25 years have been pressuring them. If I say, we want this lighting district, and you out there, if you don't like the lighting and it's dangerous in your neighborhood, pressure them and you will get lighting if you pressure them. Otherwise, they don't give a damn. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. Actually, the reason I held this and another item regarding your lighting maintenance districts is just to show the difference between the assessments that are being charged to the districts. And if you have an agenda, you might take a look at items 25, 26, and 27 and note the difference in the costs that are being assessed for lighting districts. And those costs are predicated on property value. More expensive property value, higher assessment. But more expensive property value doesn't necessarily mean that it's more expensive property tax. And that's where part of this Prop 13 business comes into effect, especially with things like Dodger Stadium, LA Live, and these huge mega developments that you're reading about in the newspaper and such, because there's no 51% ownership, which means the property does not get reassessed at a higher value, which means the property assessment stays low. The property tax stays low. The property assessment can go up because it can be improved. Buildings can be added, new restaurants can be added, new hotels can be added, and that'll improve the property value. But the owners of the property will not pay a higher assessment in property tax. Yet those new values will charge and cause an increase in city services, which will come from your pockets because it's your money. So you should pay close attention and just kind of review this and get an idea of what's going on just with street lighting districts and how they differ in property assessments based on property value.
No. Okay, let's prepare to vote on that. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, Mr. Sachs, don't go back to your chair. I'm sorry about that. We're going to go to item 26. You're passing on 26? Okay, thank you, Arnold. Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, now I think we're going to item 29, which is Arnold Sachs and John Walsh. Item 29.
Yes, thank you again, Arnold Sachs. This is your rent escrow account program. And again, a reason I hold this, not necessarily for the rent escrow account per se, but the opportunity, and again, it might be mentioned in your negotiations with the city unions regarding the ability of the officers, the code enforcement unit. Now, it states here it's the Los Angeles Housing Department Code Enforcement Unit, so I don't know if that's part of the coalition or not, because the Los Angeles Housing Authority is not actually a city agency, as we know, but it's a nonprofit with its own rules and agenda. But it would be really helpful if they could go out and maybe even do an inventory of the sidewalks. We heard from both Councilman Vizcaino and Englander how they went around and they did an inventory of the streets back in 1998 to come up how many bad streets. Why can't you do the same inventory with sidewalks?
John Walsh passes. Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, no speakers on the queue. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Item 30, please.
Item 30, called special for cards.
Mr. Walsh, followed by Mr. Herman.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or at jwalshconfidential.com. This is you can't get more obscure than this issue. There's no city in California where this concerns, and I'm not joking, permission to change the name of a private driveway to Veranda Way, Seaglass Circle, Seahorse Court. There's a whole bunch of them. Heron, H-E-R-O-N, not H-E-R-O-I-N way, although Heroin Way would be proper for certain neighborhoods near here. Okay, private driveways are this board giving property away. You have to be connected to get the property. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Mr. Herman.
HollywoodHighland.org. Good job, Mr. Walsh, and keep going at it. Item 30. It's a lot of time. Communication from the city engineer. Are we in a process where you can actually function, fit, and provide the services that the public wants? Right? Public entity means the agency of this department, city council, members. Member? Mr. Weezar, Mr. Kikorian, people who are sitting back talking without listening. You have a public forum here, and we would like to be heard. And yes, City Attorney, I'm going back on topic because I'm redirecting myself, because I remember. Should we find that a private driveway be assessed? Most definitely we should have an assessment on any type of sidewalk, street, alterations. Because why? It affects the public. Mr. Perez, Mr. Fuentes. It affects, Mr. Rick Cola, it affects the public in many ways. And I hold my time.
All right. No speakers on the queue, no other cards. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
31 is being held. You have a verbalized motion on 31. Mr. Clerk, please give me the direction.
I've been informed that 31 was being held for an amending motion, sir.
Very well. (32) by cards. Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging on HollywoodHighlands.org. This is life and death. This is the most important agenda item, not socks. You notice I never get up when the family of the hit-and-run victim is here. They have enough grief. Okay. We have a gentleman named Damien Kivett who was killed by a hit-and-run drunk driver. I'm telling you right now, I bet my left arm that that driver was drunk. That driver may not even remember hitting that person. Why do we have in Los Angeles the wave, 2020 did a story on it, wave of drunken drivers? Because we have our per square mile of liquor licenses are higher than any other city in America. You vote 15-0 for convenience and necessity. You know, some people have for a liquor license to sell beer, wine, everything, and those people go out and they kill people. And you see no connection between that? This is Liquor, alcohol kills. We have enough goddamn liquor licenses in this city. We should have a moratorium on any more liquor licenses and let the alcoholics and the bums and they come up here and ask for more. And the blood of Brian Kiewit is indirectly on the hands of anybody up here who signs up for another liquor license. You know, sometimes it takes 15, 20, even 30 feet between these houses. Come to Hollywood. The only place that has more liquor per square mile is Las Vegas. You are the shame. And watch when it comes up, they will again vote anybody. You want to sell liquor, come to L.A., and don't worry, when people are murdered, you won't have to worry. HollywoodHighlands.org.
No speakers on the queue. We thank you for this reward motion. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Now we're on 31.
Yes, sir. 31 held special
Walsh,
for cards.
Mr. Walsh, you have a card. 31 pass. Okay. Paul Dumont. Paul. Followed by Greg Spiegel. That's correct. Denny Snyder.
Before we allow public comment on this, it might behoove us to put out the verbal amendment first, so in case there is additional comment on it.
Fine.
Thank you very much. The verbal amendment would simply be that since we are no longer really having ad hocs and trying to eliminate them, that we will only have ad hocs for a minimum of 8 months. So this would sunset automatically in 8 months. Also, the original motion stated specifically who would be on an ad hoc in this particular manner. It's really up to the council president to select any committee members and ad hocs. I would defer to the council president and let council president always select committee members and or ad hocs. So that will be the amendment. If I can get a second. Second. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paul Dumont.
Good morning, council members. My name is Paul Dumont. I'm with the Sober Living Network. I'm a fair housing advocate, and I would encourage council members to carefully review all of the council files pertaining to the community care facilities ordinance that gave rise to this issue. There's a coalition of over 200 nonprofit organizations that oppose this ordinance. Every agency that deals with homelessness, mental health, drug and alcohol treatment, and those of us that work on the front lines combating the problem of housing for people of color, people that have drug and alcohol addiction, formerly homeless, and ex-offenders, all of us are opposed to this ordinance because it hurts people that the government should be helping. I would encourage you to look at the Fair Housing Amendment Act and the implications on the Americans with Disabilities Act prior to taking any action. The original working group was to include members of the Housing Department and several of our StopCCFO.org coalition in order to come up with a reasonable alternative to the ordinance that Council District 12 has been pushing. I would hope that you would give us a seat at the table. We are the experts who work on the front lines solving these problems in the communities, and we want to make sure that our voice is heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. Greg Spiegel, is that correct?
Spiegel.
Thank you, Greg.
Hi, Greg Spiegel from Inner City Law Center. I'm here representing the Stop the CFO Coalition, 170-plus member organizations, Chamber of Commerce, LA Chamber of Commerce, California Apartment Association, church groups, housing groups. As Paul said, everybody was opposed to it. A lot of folks around the table weren't here January 30th when it came before council. We packed this chamber, we packed the overflow chamber, we packed the lawn, and people opposed to this ordinance. There was a commitment from City Council on January 30th that a working group would be created, and that's different than an ad hoc group. A working group where agency experts were going to be at it. You all, and I know you all got busy things to do right now, so you're not really listening, but you all had acknowledged that you don't have the expertise to do this, and that you needed expertise, and now the expertise is gone. We don't want to end up down this dead-end road again. We've been down it. It needs to have a limited time. 8 months sounds too long to me. It needs to have constituents be part of it. Last time we had a process where it was just 2 minutes for public this comment. It was insignificant, and a proposal was allowed to go forward that was a fair housing violation. We don't want to go around that. However, we do want to focus on solutions. We want to be part of the solution, and so if this is going to go forward, there needs to be a commitment that we not make people homeless, that we follow fair housing rules, and that we actually solve the nuisance problems, the legitimate ones that are being complained of. We want to be a part of that solution. We want to work with people who want to do that. I won't waste any more of your time. Bye.
Thank you very much. Denny Snyder.
Thank you very much, council members. I'm here to remind you that this came about, the community care ordinance came about because there was a need in the community. Many of us are concerned that there was no controls whatsoever, and there needs to be. So I'm taking the contrary of what you heard from the previous versions. I do think we need to protect people, but at the same time, we do need to also protect the homeowners in the community areas. So I thank you, and I'm looking forward to the ad hoc. Thank you.
Mr. Herman? No, Mr. Herman?
Honorable Consul, Mr. Labange, President, this is a motion relative to replacing, reamping community care facilities. Well, under state regulations, there are policies and rules of how to conduct local government level for the needs of what we're discussing here. I'm not going to go into all the subject because it's irrelevant. You know what you should do as a local government, providing the necessities for people's health, directing attention and programs to the health of people in need, people with mental disabilities, people who are in physical disabilities or impairments. But when you obstruct the services, the program and activities by your unwillingness to hear the concerns of your constituents. Look at them. In numbers, they've come to talk about the murals. So have I. But Mr. Huizar is talking, and it has to deal with his area as much as what I'm talking about when it comes to the services we need in our areas. Boyle Heights, Lincoln Heights, El Sereno, we have the highest influence, negativity towards people with disabilities and with mental disabilities. And you impact our lives when you sit here and lollygag and not bother to take our concerns passionately and with restraint from when you're conversating over a public speaker. Mr. Huizar, please. Thank you. So let's go on and support our action to see that there is state and federal issues involved when you make these determinations on this subject of matter. 6 seconds.
No other speakers on the queue except Mr. Bonin.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's no secret to a lot of members in the audience, constituents, and folks who've been active on this issue that both as Councilman Rosenthal's chief of staff and as a candidate, I was strongly opposed to the previous version of the Community Care Facilities Ordinance. And I shared a number of the concerns of the affordable housing activists, disability community, and the sober living community. At the same time, I fully appreciated the concerns of a number of my constituents, particularly in Mar Vista and Pacific Palisades and in Westchester, who had concerns about problem properties. And I said at the time that I thought there was a way to work through a process and resolve both concerns, and that we can deal with nuisance properties without harming those who need help and who need a safe harbor and affordable housing. And I've spoken with Mr. Englander on this, and I have volunteered, and if the council president so chooses to do it, I will serve with him on this committee to make sure that we can make sure that everybody's concerns are heard and that we can work to a mutually responsible and approved solution.
Thank you, Mr. Bonin. There's no speakers on the queue. Mr. Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
With the verbal amendment. Thank you very much. That passed forthwith on that item. Next, we're going to have a presentation. Councilman Curtin Price. very special presentation.
Mr. President, members, neighbors, friends, today marks the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, one of the largest political rallies for human rights in the history of the United States. The march was led by Dr. Martin Luther King, who delivered on that day his most famous speech, "I Have a Dream." There are celebrations across the country today to mark the anniversary, and I have with me today in Council the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, LA chapter. At the very beginnings of the SCLC can be traced back to the Montgomery bus boycott, where Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white man on the bus. The boycott gave way to the modern civil rights movement, and boycotts spread across the South. In order to organize these protests, leaders met to form a regional organization called the Southern Leadership Conference on Transportation and Nonviolent Integration, of which Dr. Martin Luther King was named president. The group later shortened its name to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Basic decisions made by the founders at these early meetings included the adoption of nonviolent mass action as the cornerstone of its strategy, the affiliation of local community organizations with SCLC across the South, and a determination to make the SCLC movement open to all, regardless of race, religion, background, or ethnicity. The SCLC is now a nationwide organization, and I'm happy to have with me today the Los Angeles chapter. I'd like to bring the president of the chapter forward, Pastor Smart, to say a few words.
To the council, to President Whitson, and to President Curran Price, and all of you ladies and gentlemen, this is an important day for America. 50 years ago today, something extremely significant happened, and we just are here with the coalition of groups of labor unions, faith-based organizations, community groups, just to reaffirm our commitment that we're going to continue to fight in a way like we have never before for justice, for jobs, and for freedom, the things that 50 years ago Martin Luther King and all the other leaders were up in Washington. We came to the City Hall steps today to say that we want to continue to have good jobs. The agenda's not finished. We want to have great education. The agenda's not finished. We want to have freedoms. The agenda's not finished. But we collectively, we're going to make sure the agenda gets finished the next 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, on behalf of the City of Los Angeles, the citizens of the new 9th District, we are honored to recognize you on celebrating the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, where Dr. Martin Luther King delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Congratulations.
Thank you. We accept this for all of these coalition members. Absolutely. We accept this for all the residents, that we are going to be committed to doing the job for our city.
Excellent. Excellent. Keep up the good work.
And where's Sherry? I want Sherry to document this, if we could, real quick.
Oh, yeah. Also.
Mr. Price, thank you. Let's remember the message. Give everyone in this participation a big hand. Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much. We're going to take 8 and 10 together. We do have cards. There was a hearing in committee, but we're going to do a 10-minute public hearing and also ask for those speakers to speak at 1 minute each. We're going to take up 8 and 10 together. We'll work from both cards. Is the Planning Department here? Planning Department, center table. Call it, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, this is a reminder that this is a fair hearing matter requiring council members' heightened attention to the speakers at the podium or at their monitors at their desks.
Thank you. And Mr. LeGrand, can you get your staff at the center table, just give the council an update on this?
If you could please tell us what we have before us.
Good morning, council members. My name is Nick Hendricks, Department of City Planning. What's before us under item number 8 is the Il Villaggio Toscano project, which involves 325 residential units. It's a mixed-use project. The project has been in the system since 2004. It's had an environmental impact report. We have a number of mitigation measures and conditions that we require of the project. It originally started off as 500 units. We reduced it down to 325. There were subsequent appeals on the case. We have suggested or recommended at the Plum Committee that those appeals be denied and that our original determinations be sustained. If you have any further questions, I'll be available. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I would, as the council member,
yes, go ahead,
redistricting last year, I took over Sherman Oaks. This project started in 2004.
That's correct.
And through the process of a number of representatives, Mr. Ciandia, it came to my lap. In my lap, I saw that the 500 was too big, and the planning department heard us about setting it back and trying to make it work for everybody. Not everybody is happy, but we try to bring everybody together. So we're going to have a 10-minute public hearing, 1 minute each on that, if you could, to allow the number of people to speak and also to address the issue. As a planning professional, you feel confident this is a good project for Sherman Oaks and the city of Los Angeles?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. President, if we could have 10 minutes, just call the cards.
Okay. Jaime Rojas, Jr. Followed by Brad Torgan. Please come forward. I think Mr. Labange, is it 1 minute each?
1 minute each, and this and let's try to get as many as we can.
Okay, we'll do.
There was a hearing in committee.
Okay, yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. President, honorable council members. My name is Jaime Rojas, and today I'm here representing the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, and I'm proud to say that I'm a proponent of responsible development here in the city of Los Angeles. But unfortunately, proposed Il Villaggio Toscano project is not one of those developments. I'm a longtime Valley resident as well as work in the area. On a daily basis, I pass through the proposed project site and sit with my fellow Angelinos in unbearable traffic through the Ventura Sepulveda intersection, currently designated as one of the worst intersections in the entire city. We're talking about an additional 5,800 traffic trips. Some say 4,600, some say 5,000, and granted, there's probably confusion of that, and that is because the Planning Commission approved a reduced project that was not one of the project alternatives. This current project has not been studied, the traffic studies have not been updated, and we believe that it is very flawed in the terms of your ability to approve it today. We respectfully request the Council to hold this item and direct planning staff to further study traffic and other impacts based on the project that has not been studied by the Planning Commission.
Thank you. If I could get Brad Torgan, Rano Ziff, and a Louis Krokover. Yes, sir. Identify.
Thank you. Brad Torgan on behalf of Sherman Oaks Residents for a Safe Environment.
And you are?
Brad Torgan.
Okay, good to see you.
I'd actually like to talk about a project you approved several months ago called Kasdan West, because what you did there is instructive for what you should do here. Fundamentally, the two projects are identical. Someone wants to build a lot of apartments right next to a freeway. In Kasdan West, it was 300 feet. Here, it's 35 feet. And what you did in Kasdan West is require the developer to move those units 500 feet away from the freeway. Anything closer was bad for public policy and bad for public health. It should be the same here. We're not suggesting to prohibit multifamily altogether. We're just saying that you shouldn't be granting exceptions to increased density above the current 1.5 FAR. The applicant will tell you that this is the most heavily air quality mitigated residential project in the city's history. That should give you pause. If you have to go to those lengths to protect public health, a project like this is bad for public health and bad public policy.
Thank you. Thank you. So, do we have Ronald? Okay, followed by Lewis, and then followed by Bob Anderson. Go right ahead, sir.
I'm the land use chair of the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. We did approve this project. We spent 21 months working on the project, and I'm going to squeeze my conclusions into 1 minute. We had 5 public hearings, heard over 200 speakers over 13 hours. We approved the project with 24 conditions, and the conditions are well thought out, the findings are sound, and the community will be protected. Even the opposition has supported the 24 conditions that we have approved on this. We ask you to approve the project, approve the conditions, and let it go forward.
Thank you, sir. Lewis, if you could state your name for the record.
Yes, Mr. President. Louis Krokover, resident, Sherman Oaks, California. Good morning, council members, staffers. This project has been in the works for almost 10 years. I commend the planning department, its staffers, Councilmember LaBonge and his staffers for working with the community, as well as the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council's efforts to get this project from 500 to 395 and then further down to 325 units. Again, I commend all the staffers and the community outreach on this project. I support this project and request that you do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
I'm Bob Anderson. I represent the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. The proposed project is located at a perfect storm of traffic, noise, and air pollution. The existing traffic currently on the adjacent streets is totally gridlocked. The junction of Ventura and Sepulveda in Sherman Oaks is one of the worst intersections in the city, maybe the country. The IVT project will add over 1.6 million annual traffic trips to Sepulveda Boulevard near the intersection with Ventura Boulevard. The EIR cites this and other nearby intersections as areas that have negative traffic impacts that cannot be mitigated. IVT's nearest proposed residential tower is located 35 feet from the 405 freeway near its junction with the 101. As such, the noise levels impacting the proposed structures are 80 dB. That's 50% higher than the noise level at the west end of the runways at LAX. Who's going to go on their balcony there? These levels exceed standards adopted by the city.
Thank you. Thank you. If we could now have Marshall Long, David Goldberg, R.J. Comer, please come forward. Yes, sir.
Marshall Long, representing Sherman Oaks homeowners. To continue the remarks that Bob started, air pollution is the third major impact. Recently, researchers at UCLA and USC have linked increases in autism with pollution from freeways. The AQMD has issued guidance document linking cancer risks to the distance to freeways. Their data shows that the pollution at this location is 4 times the maximum set by the AQMD for residential structures. The developer is proposing to install 12-inch thick filters on the air handlers. Unfortunately, these have not been shown to be effective against the fine carbon particles that contribute to cancer and autism. It also means that the windows cannot be open and fans must be run at all times. I presume that swimming pool users can duct tape filters to their faces while they are shouting at their friends.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could have Mr. Goldberg, R.J. Comer. Yes.
Good morning, Council President Weston and honorable council members. I'm David Goldberg of Armbruster Goldsmith and Delvac on behalf of the applicant. Located within walking distance of 6.5 million square feet of office space and 7 bus lines, this project is a mixed-use, transit-oriented development that will bring residents closer to jobs, promote mass transit and walkability, beautify an important gateway along Sepulveda Boulevard in Sherman Oaks, and generate customers for local businesses. The project's evolved in response to community input, addressing concerns, reductions in height, reductions in the size of the project, and the inclusion of a 13,000 square foot public plaza. The project enjoys broad support from transit advocacy groups, from the business community. It has the support of the Neighborhood Council, unanimous approval of the City Planning Commission, and a recommendation for approval from your Plum Committee. The Planning Department has studied this project thoroughly, and the evidence in the record supports the approval of the project and the required findings. The substantial community and economic benefits will also support the statement of overriding considerations. Thank you.
So if I could get Roy Nakamura to begin coming forward, Jim Reese, and Paul Kruger, I believe it is. Mr. Comer?
Thank you, Council President, Mr. Wesson, and honorable council members. My name is R.J. Comer on behalf of the applicant. I'm going to address the 2 issues we've heard about: traffic and air quality. Traffic in this area is bad. REIR says so, and there are some unmitigated impacts. But what you need to know is that even a project that complies with the specific plan would result in the exact same impacts. A smaller project was analyzed in this administrative record, and it shows that the significant impacts resulting from that smaller project would be the same as this project. This project represents a good balance between the need to provide housing next to jobs and the recognition of significant traffic problems. Air quality has been thoroughly studied. Your City Planning Commission that passed a guideline about residential structures near freeways approved this project because the mitigation measures are so good. An October 2009 Squawk study confirms the efficacy of these mitigation measures in reducing ultrafine particulate matter. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, sir, if you're one of the last cards, and don't forget I called Roy Nakamura, Jim Reese, and Paul Kruger. Please come up. You're losing your time. Yes, sir.
My name is Jim Reese, Craig Lawson Company, and Roy Nakamura, Paul Kruger, and I will be yielding our time so some of the other supporters can speak.
Okay, no, we don't yield, so you better go take advantage of your 50 seconds.
We're good. Thank you.
Okay, then I need Doug Arsenault, Adriana Fernandez. Please come forward.
What about my card?
I see you in the back, Doug. Mr. Dude, I haven't gotten to your card yet. And these will be the last 2 speakers for today. Yes, Doug.
Good morning, council members. My name is Doug Arsenault of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, representing more than 380 businesses throughout the San Fernando Valley. VICA strongly supports the revised Il Villaggio Toscano project, which underwent a remarkable decade-long process, including working with the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council for more than 2 years to ensure the best possible final proposal. A committed longtime member of the Valley business community, M. David Paul has made several reductions in units, reduced building height, eliminated 2 of its original specific plan exception requests, incorporated an extensive list of design features, and volunteered 20 other conditions requested by the Neighborhood Council. Il Villaggio Toscano is a model project for fulfilling our region's air quality and transit-oriented development goals outlined in AB 32 and the Sustainable Communities Act by Senate President Pro Tem Steinberg. As the leading policy analysts and advocates for the Valley, VICA recognizes the importance of forward-thinking projects like Il Villaggio Toscano. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, our last speaker on this item.
Good morning, council members. My name is Adriana Fernandez. I live and work in Sherman Oaks, and I strongly support the Il Villaggio Toscano project. This development is desperately needed in Sherman Oaks. When I was searching for a home, I was disappointed by the lack of quality apartments. While Sherman Oaks may appear to be oversaturated by apartments, many of them have not been renovated in years. As a longtime renter during college and into my career, I have watched the discussion of this project. I was impressed that the Neighborhood Council was able to bring stakeholders together and find a compromise that ensured the best project for Sherman Oaks. Recently, I have heard from groups that are trying to drown out the voice of the groups that engaged in this process. As a voter in Sherman Oaks, I am very disappointed that these groups are being regarded above residents that engaged in the process, particularly renters. I recognize that homeowners are perceived as more permanent residents and are therefore given a more prominent voice. But my generation is proud to be renters and deserve to be given a proper voice in the Sherman Oaks community. I look forward to El Villaggio Toscano being built and hope that the Council will move forward with development that includes enough units to ensure these quality apartments are affordable.
Thank you very much. Just to explain, the public comment on these items have already been satisfied. At the request of the member, we had an additional 10 minutes. With that, we'll defer back to Mr. Labange.
Mr. President and members, and the city planner is here, Mr. LeGrand. Mr. LeGrand, I just want to say that Nick Henrich did a tremendous job as a planning officer when you're counting on people to balance it out. To the developer, Keith Richards and Mick Jagger wrote a song, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes you get what you need. We do need housing, we do need it balanced, we do need to mitigate it, so it's important. I want to thank Nick a lot for your work. A former Valley resident, or still in the Valley, knows the area well. We've got to work on traffic issues. I want to thank Jonathan Brand, who's my deputy. I want to thank Paul Kokorian, who gave it to me in redistricting, and others. I kid you, Paul. But I want to let you know we try to work it out. And I especially want to thank the neighborhood councils. From time to time, we don't thank them enough, but they went through the process, so many meetings, got involved, and were the voice. I do want to thank Richard Close and the Neighborhood Association, Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. Next time I might be with you. This time I'm with the Planning Department. I ask for an aye vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Forthwith, per Mr. Labange.
Okay.
Oh, okay. What I'm going to do now is take up some of the general public comment request. So, Arnold, if you could begin to move forward if you're here. Sid, again, thank you for all the socks. If you could come forward. And John Walsh. Yes, Arnold.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Sachs, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. It's fascinating. The last speaker who came up here to talk about this project that you just voted on mentioned that she was a voter and that her rights should be represented, because you had a ceremony in here about voting rights. You have voting rights and voter rights. And although you address voting rights, voter rights are being diced and cut every day by elected officials. Here you have in this council several community buildings, several activities, several developments that are going to leave a lasting footprint. But because they're heard in council committees, they're not brought forward to the council chamber for additional public comment. BFD, I say. In the county yesterday, they had a group of public hearings, 1 minute per public comment. They had a development for Disney, 1 minute. They had fracking in the La Cienega Hills, 1 minute. Voters' rights versus voting rights. It's a distinct distinction, and it doesn't make sense necessarily, but it's true. It's the same as property value assessment and property tax. That little distinction makes a world of difference. And as you heard, I believe, Mr. Englander mention earlier with your sock routine, 3,000 socks, 3,000 pairs, 6,000 socks. And that's how the city council acts. 6,000 socks, 6,000 socks, 6,000 socks, 3,000 pairs. It's not necessarily the same number.
Thank you.
But it's
Thank
the same
you.
number.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Sid. And Sid, you're followed by Juan Acala.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. You know, 30,000 socks. Okay, great. How about some shoes? Have you ever walked the city streets with socks on? You get a lot of crap on the bottom of your feet. Okay, remember the Twin Towers in LA. Check the Wall Street Journal, because there's going to be a gigantic expose on the Twin Towers built, if you'd been able to get away with it, on a earthquake fault. Remember, investors of the world, do not put your money in Los Angeles, because they allow people like me to speak and people like us to prevent these contracts. The Twin Towers in LA are over. They're gone. Now, if you go to Jay Walsh Confidential, what are you going to get today? Gossip from HuffPost. Speaker John Perez wages war on women. You know, every time John Perez lies, remember when I pointed to him over here? He gains 1 pound. Bloodthirsty LA City Council Wolfpack. See what I did to the Wolfpack ad. That's up there now. Also, First Lady and her new gal pal dance the night away. Take a look at her newest girlfriend, the First Lady's newest girlfriend. Zuma Dog? You know, the LA Times doesn't think this is a big story. You know, there's a way of training a dog. I don't believe in it, which is when a dog makes a mess, you stick their nose in it. I don't believe in that for dogs. But when you make a mess out of public comment, we stuck your nose in it, and a federal court agreed with Zuma Dog. You're under new rules. I don't use the F word, but if I wanted to, I am now allowed under the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Go to our website. We put things up there every hour now. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you. Sid? Sid. No, Juan after Sid. Sid is coming. He's right. He's set right in front of you. Come on, Sid. Followed by Juan Acala.
Good morning, council members. I'd like to start to thank Mr. Wesson for your vision for this drive, and also Mr. Buscaino, who headed the drive, this committee. And also I'd like to thank Mr. Huizar's office and his staff for diligently always coming through for the public and his constituents and making things right. I also like to add that the St. Vincent Court individuals, they gave selflessly for this effort, thinking that even though they're under heavy pressure in their own businesses, but there was a higher calling to help others. St. Vincent Court and its property owners and the restaurant owners will be always ready to help anytime where there's a calling for a reason higher than purpose that they serve. We also like to mention, and in the future, I being a personal chef myself, that we like to devote my personal time and the times of all those restaurant owners as chefs to also serve at the mission's request one day, whatever that day may be, to cook and to help the mission in any which way we can. Council members, there are a lot of things that we can solve. As you all know, that my advocacy to help these individuals in the downtown court is that when people put their minds into something, they'll come together, talk to one another, expedite it, and find solutions. We look forward for the future that St. Vincent Court and the building owners in that property sector and the restaurants would always come for the help of others. But at the same token, let's not forget, having a sock drive is not the only solution for the homeless and the needy. We will help when the calling arrives. And again, I thank all of you, and I thank the Huizar's office and his staff for really making this happen, because we provided over 50% of this drive, and we're very proud to be part of it. And I thank you.
Mr. Acala.
Mr. Welch does not use the F word. I do. This is a fucked up way to run business. Crazy socks for everybody. What about crazy housing for everybody? We would like to have some crazy housing. Can you achieve that, City Council? Crazy housing for everyone? Or housing for all us crazies? Because you're driving us all crazy with your red tape. City Attorney, I'm glad you came back from Atlantic City. You do look like the Monopoly guy. I keep telling you that. Mr. LaBanche, stop drinking and stop giving out alcohol licenses. We don't need more alcohol in this society. You know, and now you're trying to regulate marijuana? Why don't you regulate all the drugs you do? Like cocaine and methane and whatever you do. Crack cocaine. I am not going to be gentle on you idiots. Mr. President, you are talking right over whatever I'm saying. That means you're not listening a damn thing I'm saying. Okay? And that's the way you do business. You do not listen to the people. You listen to one another and you pass the positions to one another. You do not count the votes properly. I ran for city council and you say I only got 3 votes. That is totally ridiculous. My friend that ran for mayor, you say she got 14 votes. Why? Because you don't know how to count. And the guy that ran for Hollywood, you say he got 1 vote. Does that show you that you don't know how to count? He usually gets at least 30,000 votes. You are a screwed up way to do business. And you keep on talking over the people that are talking to you. You do not respect anyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Quasi, are you still here? Mfuma? Quasi, I saw you earlier. David Randall or David Rennell? Omar Baldwin, please come forward. And Mr. Herman. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Well, I'm here on the issue that you've already approved at 4827 North Sepulveda Boulevard. However, I did submit 2 cards. Really, truly, Mr. LaBonge, I would love to know what the rationale behind giving them a 50% increase in number of units was and square footage. Well, you gave them an increase over what the Ventura Boulevard specific plan allows. So unfortunately, you just turned your back on an existing city document and code. As I left my home this morning in Sherman Oaks, 4 blocks away from the project
Mr. President,
site.
he's speaking on an item that was on the agenda. This is for general public comment.
Yeah, you may have misfiled your card, sir, because you're speaking on an item that was placed on today's agenda. This is general public comment when you can't reference the item. Mr. Krikorian.
Well, with respect to the city attorney, since that matter has already been voted upon and was sent forthwith, I think it's an appropriate area for a member of the public to comment on during general public comment. It is within the jurisdiction of this council, and it is no longer relating to an agenda item. So,
Mr. City Attorney, give me your opinion so we can move on.
I don't mean to argue with the city attorney, but I would suggest
But you do it well.
Now that the matter has been voted upon, it's perfectly appropriate for a member of the public to be able to comment on it.
I see the logic in your position, and he should proceed.
Continue, and thank your attorney. Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Krikorian. Thank you, Council President. The traffic was so bad it was backed up on my street from approximately Ventura Boulevard north to Camarillo Street, which is roughly the 101 freeway. This project sits just adjacent to the 101 freeway and 405. As I left to drive downtown to City Hall, I was able to get off my street. But if I was trying to go point south, I wouldn't have been able to do it successfully. I haven't seen traffic that bad in quite a while, and we already have neighborhood protection and traffic mitigation measures in place from the Sherman Oaks Galleria development some 12 years ago. So I think an error was made, and I hope that moving forward that city staff will do everything they can to mitigate with the, I believe it's a $400,000 or $300,000 traffic mitigation fund. So I'm hoping that we can count on the support of Councilmember LaBonge's office to bring that forward and put in place a meaningful mitigation.
Thank you. Mr. Baldwin, followed by Mr. Herman.
Hello, City Chamber. Today I will be speaking on the behalf of the Peace and Freedom Party. Cindy Sheehan, she just announced that she will be running for governor in 2014. And what I'm doing here today is to let everybody know that Cindy Sheehan is a peace advocate. And what she's doing for our state would be like to bring like equality and more jobs and more equal stuff for everybody. So the Peace and Freedom Party is like basically like a third party. It's not a Republican Party or a Democratic Party. It's not even like the Green Party. It's like its own party. And you guys can find more information about the Peace and Freedom Party on peaceandfreedom.org. And you can find more about Cindy Sheehan and her and more about her on cindy2014.org. And that'll be it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Herman.
Can we get our time, please? Thank you. Are you offended by the action of Mr. Huizar, this public official, elected officer, his matter, his intent for better neighborhoods, services, and concerns for lower income neighborhoods is all washed away? Why? Because of your harassment, your sexual harassment, Mr. Huizar. And I find it repulsive. Why? Because of his misuse of his political position and the result that the city will pay out of your taxpaying dollars on the back end under the civil lawsuit. Not now. He'll be freed, acquitted. But on the back end, there'll be a lawsuit. And who pays for it? We do. You, the taxpayers. Anyone here who brings in an income, you will pay for that. The same way we paid for another public official. So, fighting a lawsuit of sexual harassment, is it in best interest of the taxpayers? No. Step down. Remove yourself from the insult you've created. Take all necessary action, City Attorney, and this agency of local government. As the City Council should know, under Ordinance 167949, Section 49.5.5, you have the resources and the context to do something, take an action. My conduct was due to an awkwardness, a thoughtlessness, but not an intention to harass or abuse a city position. No, it wasn't. So take charge. Do something about this matter of harassment. Although they want to conduct a conversation on my public time, that's ridiculous. And I don't have to raise my voice to get your attention because I'm an articulate speaker when it comes to an articulate issue and an articulate area in the city of Los Angeles. So let's get the facts straight. No sexual harassment in City Hall.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Richard Robinson. Richard, and do we have Kwasi Akuma? Okay, Richard, you're on.
Mr. President, members, Daily News. Very interesting. Very interesting. Column left. Garcetti, runaway production. Filming is in state of emergency. Mayor Eric Garcetti on Tuesday declared a state of emergency in the push to keep the film business in Los Angeles. Bravo. Sir, my dad, when he left the Marine Corps, he drove a taxi cab, 46, Bogey, Errol Flynn, Mansfield, Turner. He was very popular. He was Hollywood's first black taxi cab driver. In 1946, he began a career driving a taxi. He wanted to be in the film industry. But the point is, also Marilyn, Norma Jean Mortensen, she and he were friends, Marilyn Monroe. But here we go. If there's anything that lends veracity to the motion picture industry, it's film shot in the streets of Los Angeles. Now, some people, they argue. The NIMBYs, the not in my backyards, who say, they're blocking traffic. Of course they're blocking traffic. But it is Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, the most important industry is the motion picture industry in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, that concludes general public comment. Let me see. Mr. Cedillo, do you want to go to, is it item 11 or which item? 11 and 20, 21?
Yes. Jen?
Are we ready?
11 and 21. 11 and 21.
Okay, 11 and 21. And, okay, look. No hollering.
11 and 21.
No hollering. We're going to take up items 11
and 21.
And 21 right now. Then we'll close everything out with the mural ordinance. So anyway, how would you like to proceed? The public hearing has been satisfied.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, I realize that the public hearing has been satisfied, but to make sure that all voices are heard, we would like to create an opportunity for those who, on the opponent side, were not present. They have a counsel now, so we'd like to provide, as you had indicated, an opportunity for them to make their presentation.
Okay, so why don't we give them they'll have 3 speakers at 1 minute, and then their attorney can have a minute as well. Okay?
3 and 3.
And just a reminder that this is a fair hearing matter requiring heightened attention to the speaker at the podium or to your monitors.
So members, stay in your seats. Okay, Mr. Cedillo, do you have the names of the individuals? Where's the attorney? Maybe he could come forward, identify himself, and speak for the first minute.
Thank you, Mr. Wesson and honorable council members. I'm Dean Walraff from the firm of Advocates for the Environment, and I represent Friends of Highland Park. There are 2 major issues here. One is that this is the largest housing project ever approved in Highland Park, even though it's small by millennium standards. But it's a big deal for the residents, and their concerns have not been taken adequately into account. It'll be a massive building behind the storefronts that face Figueroa Boulevard, which is this beautiful little 1930s boulevard with a lot of character, and it'll change. Having this massive building higher than anything on that facade will change the character of that boulevard a lot. The second thing is there are a bunch of CEQA violations in the mitigated negative declaration for this project. I don't have time to talk about them very much, but they're aesthetics and hazardous materials. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is it Jesse Rojas?
I'm going to yield my time to Dean.
But we really
I'd like to give my time.
we don't do that. I'm so sorry, but that's just so I understand, but that
thank you very much,
things
Mr.
go
President.
crazy.
But I'm really upset for the situation right now. But the thing is, this is going to create a really mess in our community. I don't think so. That's fair for the community, more dense as it is. It's going to destroy business. If we talk about economic development in the corridor, it needs improve the corridor, improve the business in the facades, and invite the people to do better in the community. But as it is, they're going to build such humongous building behind the businesses. It's going to be affected. All the business in the corridor for 18 months is going to be a lot of 18-wheelers cruising the boulevard, Avenue 56, 57, 58, Monte Vista, and Figueroa. This is going to destroy. On top of that, we have schools. The environmental impact was not given to us. I didn't see the environmental impact. It should be the environmental impact, give it to the community to find out exactly they did it, but they didn't do it. That's what we want to go to CEQA to really find out exactly what the problem is in the soil. Many of you guys, they don't live in the community, but we do. We've been there for centuries. Thank you.
Thank you. Identify yourself.
Lloyd Catro, Friends of Highland Park, as well as an associate member of the SoCal Earthquake Country Alliance. The proposed Highland Park project is in an area that is probable for high seismic activity. The likelihood of a 7 to 7 point event is high. It is possibly at the eastern end of the Hollywood fault line below Site 1. This is based on research conducted after the Sylmar earthquake, February 1st, 1971, by Dr. Lamar. The fractures in concrete structures constructed in the 1920s support the theory that the above-mentioned fault terminates at the Raymond Fault. The most recent study conducted by USGS for the MTA in 1998 is not adequate. The State Geological Department is conducting a survey on the Hollywood fault line now, but needs time to conclude it. Please do not proceed with the project until the Hollywood fault map is produced. To err on the side of caution would be prudent. Sincerely, Lloyd Catro.
Thank you. Yes.
Lisa Duardo of Highland Park. Gentlemen and Madam, I would like to start with an MLK quote for the day. It's always the right time to do the right thing. This is a development where the City of Los Angeles is the lead agency with a private developer. The elephant in the room here is that there is money for the coffers of the city and for the private developer. This project is going through on a mitigated negative declaration. The project that preceded us in this hall, Sherman Oaks, is in a Anglo neighborhood with medium to high income people, citizens that live there. Highland Park is low income with people of color, and that is why the city is trying to push this through with a checklist, a boilerplate checklist that does not even address the Arroyo Seco, does not even address an already overpopulated area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Cedillo, I have a member, I believe, in support. Is that Ricardo Morales? Do we have, is he here? Okay, come on forward. Come on, sir.
Council members, President, thank you for this opportunity. We're here as a group, but I'll speak briefly from Academia Avance. We're a charter school on Avenue 53. We're in support of this project. We understand that the development for this project underwent several different revisions to try to incorporate the needs that were expressed. But there's a clear need for housing in this neighborhood. I'll let the parents speak to that.
No, we don't. I'm so sorry, but we don't share time like that. You have 1 minute and you have to finish it.
So we have our representatives from our Parent Advisory Committee and one student who's learning about the democratic process here. But our point is we graduate students to go to college, and we've been able to do that at over a 90% rate.
Wonderful.
When these students finish college, they need a place to come back to, and we need more housing in this neighborhood for these kinds of residents that addresses their needs. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cedillo, let's close it out.
Members, this was a project that I inherited from my predecessor. It's a project that addresses one concern: the incredible need for quality low-income housing in our community. Land is precious and limited. And so what we've done here is that we've taken advantage of land that was used for a parking lot and converted it. And in doing so, we did a few things. We made sure that we lost no parking. So every parking spot that exists will be replaced with surface parking. Second, we made sure that we addressed concerns during the process of the development. It will be a phased-in process so that we minimize the impact on the residents and the businesses. Third, we will accommodate the businesses by making sure we create off-site parking during the time period. We have also made sure that in the design of the project that it doesn't interfere with people's view of the community. So it is not a tower. It's not a skyscraper. It's a two-story. It's a two-story. What do you call it? It escapes me. But it's a typical 1940s style looking framework, right? Townhouse style looking. It's very accommodating and fits perfectly within the historic architecture. And in fact, it's passed all the criteria. So every concern that has been raised has been addressed. In addition, the developer is willing to address additional concerns. I've spoken with DOT to help us address concerns of parking during the construction phase. The craftsman style was what I was looking for. It's a craftsman style design development. It goes over 3 blocks. It's in the alleyway. We took city parking and have converted it into housing, 80 units over 3 blocks, much of it low-income housing, high-quality developer who not only develops the project but manages it. He has a great record with the city and throughout the Southwest in these developments. It's transit-centered. It meets every principle of smart growth policies. And so this community, and to be fair, I inherited this project. And there were some concerns that were brought forward, but we've addressed principally all those concerns. And I've met with the businesses along the corridor to talk about their concerns. Many of them feel that they've been listened to. And so there is significant and strong support. Obviously, there still remains some opposition. You've heard it. But nonetheless, we've turned the situation, as I would say, turned lemons into lemonade. We've taken a property or 3 properties and converted them from mere parking into housing and parking. There'll be off-site growth in terms of green space. And so I want to thank the developer for his accommodations, and I want to thank my colleagues who heard this in committee and would ask you to support this proposal that addresses principally, as I said, the concern for us to have integrated organic growth of low and moderate income housing in this working class community.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. And I will say this one more time. Public hearing was already satisfied. Mr. Cedillo made a request, and we gave him an opportunity for other individuals to speak. So no one else is going to speak on this, Mr. Akala. You've been here long enough to know how this works. So with that said, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Mitchell, Englander. Let me see if Mr. Huizar, if you're ready to proceed. What we will do on your items is we will have 15 minutes on both sides, a minute each per speaker. And I'm going to let Mr. Englander monitor this portion of today's agenda.
Yeah, I'll grab the
Labange, Mr. Labange.
Good morning again. A few minutes to noontime. Mr. Huizar, as the chair of the committee, we'd like to give opening introductions. We also have the planning department here.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to have a 15 minutes on both sides of the issue. So we'll go there. And I'd like to ask you to do 1 minute. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, again, this is for item 7. And we do have motions 7C, 7D, and 7E that have been submitted and circulated for Council's consideration.
Very well. Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, I want to thank you all for your patience as we bring this item up to today in Council. Now, this item is not new. It's been around for some time, and it's been over longer than 10 years that there's been a ban on private property here in the city of Los Angeles for murals. And the city has been grappling with this just as long because of the litigation we had with the sign industry, the commercial sign industry. There was this moratorium on allowing murals to go up in the city of Los Angeles. And as many of you know, the city of Los Angeles was once known as the mural capital of the world, whether it was in Venice or the east side of Los Angeles, some places in downtown, as early as the 1930s, when we had Siqueiros paint one of his first murals here at Placita Alvera. The city of Los Angeles was known as a place where it supported the arts, where we had free expression on our walls, and where we wanted to make sure that we continued to allow the artist communities to flourish. Unfortunately, like I said, we said no to our artists for the last decade, and I truly believe it's time to say yes. And it's time to say yes today. We've waited too long. And we've had extensive discussions on this. And let me tell you, this is a very complicated issue. We are not only dealing with legal issues involving the First Amendment, we are dealing with people's personal private property. We are dealing with what the community feels should be visible in their communities. There are a number of different issues involved with this. But I'm happy to say that throughout the past few years, we've had a number of meetings throughout the city of Los Angeles to come up with the best product today. It's not perfect. There's still some things we want to fix, still some things we want to change. But I would ask that we move forward with this and allow our artists community to once again flourish and to allow these murals to go up in our city. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about hate speech, swastikas, lewd or obscene language, and obviously those are managed by the First Amendment. What we've come down to, I think, is issues such as, and the one that's been most prevalent in the last minute before we move on this, hopefully today, is whether we should allow them on single-family homes. As we know, our city is very diverse. It's not only diverse in income levels, in ethnicities, but also diverse in what people expect in their own neighborhoods. And because of that, we want to find a way that allows these neighborhoods to allow for what they would like to see, whether they would or would not like to see murals on single-family homes. Now, I've gotten a sense from council where we are, and I think what we have proposed here today, and Englander and myself, is to go forward with item B, but to come back and ask the Plum Committee to report back to this council in 30 days about if a community would like to opt in and allow murals in single-family homes, what is the most expeditious way to allow that to happen. So that we get the sense that generally throughout the city, people would want to keep the status quo in terms of murals for single-family homes. But the motion I put forward, and I think it's C, we would be back here in 30 days with a proposal by the Planning Department as to how we could most expeditiously allow those neighborhoods to allow murals on single-family homes. And murals on single-family homes actually make only about 2 to 3% of murals in the city of Los Angeles. So while it's become the biggest issue for us in moving forward this ordinance that has a lot of other components, it is only about 2 to 3% of the murals that are up in the city of Los Angeles. So with that, let me ask our staff, Councilmember President Labange, and we have the City Attorney's Office, the Planning Department, and the Cultural Affairs Department here with us today that will give a brief presentation and just give us a general overview of what this mural ordinance is about. Hopefully we could go to a public comment after that, Mr. President.
Absolutely. So let's have the team of city departments around the table, and Mr. LeGrand, if you want to open it up. And Felicia, good to see you as well. And as you do before you speak, introduce all yourselves. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Michael LeGrand, Director of Planning, along with Tom Rothman from the Planning Department to my left, Ken Fong from the City Attorney's Office, and Felicia Flyer from Cultural Affairs Department. We're very happy to be here. This is a long-coming ordinance. As you know, murals were unregulated in 1986. In 1986, it was defined as mural signs in the zoning code. In 2002, the city bans off-site signs, which included billboards and murals. Then in 2008, the City Planning Commission seeks to reverse that mural ban. I've been working with the council members on this body since that time to come up with regulations for Los Angeles to allow for murals. The Planning Department released a draft mural ordinance in 2011. Then here we are in 2012. Hearings began, and the City Planning Commission approved a draft ordinance on October 10th, 2012. I'd like to thank the artist community and the muralists who have worked with us hand in glove to make sure that we have a comprehensive ordinance to bring to you today, as well as the numerous neighborhood councils and various business interests who've been our partners in trying to draft regulations that fit the arts, but also fit Los Angeles. As you know, one-size-fits-all solutions don't usually work for Los Angeles, and we feel that the ordinance before you and the amendments that are being discussed today at Council provide that catered ordinance that allows for murals to expand in neighborhoods and areas where they belong, and also to preserve the unique characteristic of certain neighborhoods where there may be more appropriate controls needed. I'd like to have Tom Rothman take you through the provisions before you today.
Tom? Good morning. Tom Rothman from the Planning Department. This is really a city attorney report. We've worked through a lot of the issues here, and there's two versions in front of you. As the councilman earlier said, the primary difference is that version A would allow them on all structures, and version B would limit those to everything but a single-family home. Councilman?
Absolutely.
Okay. I could go through some of the regulations of the proposal.
Hit the high points, and then I want to hear from the city attorney, and then we want public comment after Felicia speaks.
Okay, certainly. This is an ordinance that would finally remove the ban from 2002 on murals, and it would be an ordinance that allows murals to go up that are regulated by the Department of Cultural Affairs. We have several regulations that we have imposed, and I'm just going to read them out for you so that it's very clear. Murals must remain in place for a minimum of 2 years. No mural may exceed the height of 100 feet above grade. No part of any mural may exceed the height of a structure. No mural shall be placed over any building opening. No part of any mural may extend more than 6 inches from the facade for those that are tiled. No murals may consist of or contain electrical or mechanical components or changing images. And there's a lighting standard that's similar to billboards of no more than 3 foot candles, which is a lighting standard that we impose for our signage. And we're all here to answer specific questions.
And I think our city attorney wants to chime in.
Deputy City Attorney Ken Fong. I just want to give just a little broad overview to put all of this in context. For many years, I've been working both on billboard matters and on the mural ordinance. And I was involved in litigation in 2003 that challenged the original mural regulations. And after we had that litigation, the city kept its ban on mural signs in place, and so we haven't had them since then. And we've also had a lot of litigation involving sign companies. Obviously, the danger is that any type of regulatory structure that you put in place, people are always going to take advantage of it. And so I've worked with Cultural Affairs and with planning to come up with a set of legislation that will hopefully, do as best a job as possible, making murals not an attractive venue for commercial advertisers. But that's the backdrop that you're always working against. And then I know that there has been talk about having some kind of discretionary process to allow murals on single-family homes. We may be exploring that in the future, and I'll work with the 2 other departments to come up with that kind of process if it's possible. So those are my comments for now, and I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you. And Felicia from the Cultural Affairs Department.
Yes, Felicia Filer, Director of Public Art. I think Ken is right. For the past 10 years, the murals community has been negatively impacted in their inability to paint murals on private property, through an agreement with the property owner. And we are eager and waiting for this passage of the new ordinance to allow muralists to get back to work. As part of the many roles that Department of Cultural Affairs played in the co-authoring of this mural ordinance and was to draft a set of administrative rules. And the administrative rules will basically take the core findings and the key findings of the ordinance and present them in a time, place, manner approach to allow a non-discretionary review, over-the-counter review, to allow private property owners or muralists to paint on private properties again. So we have completed that work. We've submitted a draft set of administrative rules for your consideration, and we're ready to go.
Thank you, Felicia. Okay. What we're going to do is going to open it up to public comment now. But before you leave, what are the two other cities that were mural capitals in the world? Name two. And they're both sister cities. Name them, Michael.
Philadelphia.
Berlin.
Philadelphia and Berlin. I've told them earlier.
Philadelphia. Get on a bus to Philadelphia. And Los Angeles, Berlin, and Mexico City. So this is good that we're all here today. Mr. Huizar, thank you for your leadership. Let's have public comment now, right now. The cards are mixed. Ron Ziff. Is Ron here? Ron Ziff. Okay, thank you very much.
And, Mr. President, if I may, we now have motion 7F that has been distributed and is now before Council for its consideration as well.
So you want to go with the noes?
We're going to go, anyone who is opposed to the ordinance, because some cards have no designation. Mr. Herman, you can sit down. I'll call you in a minute. Thank you. Then we will proceed. And then we have a number of cards that are in favor, which everyone will have a chance. Is anyone in the chambers named after John Ferraro opposed to this ordinance? All right, Mr. Alcala, I'm going to call you right now. And Mr. Herman.
I oppose, I'm an artist. I don't really oppose muralism. I grew up with murals in an orphanage. I was lying. I do not oppose it. I want murals all around us. Thank you.
Mr. Herman.
If I'm correct, we never wanted murals to be neglected or removed because we're all for it. The problem is, how does legislation write the law to protect from vandalism and destruction in our neighborhoods from vandalism? We all love art. I love art personally, Mr. Huizar, but the Willie Heron mural that you have boarded up for 2 years or longer, that's repulsive. Willie Heron's mural should be open to the public. People like us who are taxpayers who pay to see art and want to enjoy art. That's my call. Ignore it, this City Hall. But anyways, Mr. Huizar, you
Mr. Herman, address the chair, please. Thank you.
Councilman Mr. Lamban, because when you boarded up our murals, we had no privilege, no benefit from our denial to see a mural. So put our murals back where they belong, correct this ordinance, because it has stipulations, and those stipulations are this: there is no maintenance and an avenue of expense that the city will incur.
All right, thank you very much. Now we're going to call on other speakers right now. Remember, it's a 1-minute comment. Pat Gomez, followed by Joe Yacento. Is that correct, Joe? Followed by Isabel Rojas.
Good morning. For the council members that I've not had the pleasure of meeting, I'd like to contextualize my comments. For 11 years, I was the murals manager for the Department of Cultural Affairs. I left this position a year ago to pursue another opportunity. Over the years, I've spoken to artists, community members, and property owners from every corner of the city on the front lines of this issue. My ongoing concern for the state of murals compels me to speak up and encourage you to do everything in your power to pass an ordinance at the best and highest level of support for artists, mural patrons, and artistic freedom. The majority of murals in Los Angeles have been created on private property with private dollars. It is the many individual property owners working directly with local artists and community groups that have resulted in hundreds of murals that grace our streets. This is why the prohibition of murals on private property has been so detrimental.
Thank you, Pat. Appreciate that. And we asked for Joe Yaceto. No Joe. We asked for Isabel Rojas. We'll note that. Anna Sequeros. Anna. Please, Anna, come up. Carlos Rogel, is that correct? Please.
Hello, my name is Isabel Rojas Williams, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mural Conservancy of Los Angeles. Right by my side, the co-founder of my organization, legendary muralist Ken Twitchell. I just wanted to say that today the mural community stands united before you to ask that you put an end to dark ages of muralism in Los Angeles. In exchange, we pledge to work alongside you to give Los Angeles a creative landscape, one that will help boost civic pride, cultural tourism, and provide jobs. We owe it to our next generation to reclaim our legacy as a mural capital of the world. We are grateful to all who have supported and heard our ideas and suggestions, to those who have taken the time to meet with us, and to those who have the wisdom to restore our artists' freedom of expression. Thank you.
Much. And Mr. Twitchell, Ken Twitchell, Union Avenue, south of Olympic, Steve McQueen, one of the greatest murals in the city. Give that muralist a great hand. Mark, get this shot. David Botella will be coming up next. Yes, go ahead, please.
My name is Ana Siqueiros.
This is it.
I am the great niece of David Alfaro Siqueiros, who brought muralism to Los Angeles. Good morning, councilmen. We come together, artists, muralists, and creators. Today is in your hands the fate of muralism throughout Los Angeles. Please consider version A under the First Amendment of the Constitution of America, freedom of expression under freedom of speech. Muralists, denying the capability of muralists expressing themselves and putting color into a concrete world. Let the legacy continue to flourish, allowing our youth to receive our message of hope, of the future of tomorrow. We urge you to please pass this mural ordinance today and stop hindering our muralists from doing their jobs.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Introduce who's next to you.
This is Virginia Bell.
Virginia, please.
Hi. My name is Virginia Bell. I'm an artist. I am a muralist, and I'm here to support version A as member of the Siqueiros Foundation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're going to the car. Next speaker is David.
No. Carlos Rahel.
Carlos, I got you, Carlos.
Good morning, council members. I'm here today representing the Social and Public Art Resource Center, and we are in full support of version A with an opting out process for communities who desire to not have murals on single-family homes. This is no longer just a discussion of public art, but the rights of private individuals to utilize their properties as a medium of speech. Our organization demonstrated what murals could do to build the cultural landscape of Los Angeles. They improved our neighborhoods into more humane spaces, for more humane spaces for communities to live in and for our youth to mature in. Many of your predecessors, leaders in the city of Los Angeles invested millions of dollars in this direction. Do not be fettered by a few who oppose artistic expression on private property. Let's keep the larger vision in present mind to allow this vital form of expression to flourish and exist on single-family homes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have David now, followed by Willie Heron and Carmelo Alvarez.
Good morning. My name is David Boteo. I've been a public artist since 1970. I saw Los Angeles become the mural capital of the world. And I think we've been overcome by other cities. I'm sure, and I'm in support of version A, the private property mural ordinance. I'm sure the artists can work out their differences with neighborhood councils throughout our city to preserve the integrities of their own communities. We have to make sure that artists have access to all possible jobs. LA should be on the cutting edge of creating jobs for young artists. The city council should not be in the business of banning artwork, and I hope you have a good vote today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Willie.
Thank you. My name is Willie Heron. I've been a resident for 62 years of Los Angeles and also have been an active muralist and a restorer for the last 40 years. I'm a member of the International Decorative Artisans League, the Conservancy of Urban Art, and the Mural Conservancy of Los Angeles, which we are currently restoring the 1984 Olympic murals to celebrate LA's 30th anniversary. I support version A strongly for many reasons. The main thing that seems to keep coming up is the fact that this work of art that's in this room, that the tile, the green tile with the border, the marble, like all this around us, these are all murals too, which are basically found in upper affluent areas in Los Angeles. So denying artists the right to create on single-family private property is also denying the affluent area of having murals like this in their city.
Thank you very much, Willie. Carmelo Alvarez.
Good morning, Council. I think it would be very appropriate for you to vote for this mural ordinance today in honor of Martin Luther King. I had a dream speech. I support version A, and I also would like to recommend 3 funding mechanisms. Number 1, the expansion of the parameters of the 1% for the arts to include local communities. Number 2, opening up public works contracting that is normally used for graffiti abatement to artists for the ongoing preservations of murals and public art. And number 3, and finally, to increase the TOT tax, which is the transit occupancy tax that funds cultural affairs, to 1.5% for the creation of new murals and youth apprenticeships to give our young people an opportunity to work in the arts. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. I want to say Daniel Lahuda. Daniel, coming up right now. Noni Abachi, is that correct, Noni? Please correct me when you come up.
Good day, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Daniel Lahoda. I'm the founder of the LA Free Walls Mural Project and owner of La La Gallery. In the past 5 years, we've operated in direct opposition to the mural moratorium, and we've actually painted over 125 murals in Los Angeles. I'll tell you why we've been able to get away with that, because we are already operating under the administrative rules that are proposed in this ordinance. We have proof of concept of this ordinance. It's good for our communities. It's good for the city of Los Angeles. This ordinance isn't about what's allowed or what's not allowed. It's about defining a collective identity and making Los Angeles the mural capital once again. Los Angeles needs healing. Our creative community needs a path forward. This mural ordinance will guide our path forward. It will end the dark decade of mural moratorium. The ordinance will cease the marginalization of our great creative communities. It will enable and facilitate positive, responsible communication within our neighborhoods. It will create jobs and allow a productive and responsible creative industry to thrive. thrive. This ordinance will create stronger communities. Public art is the fabric that ties us together.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We've waited long enough. Please pass the mural ordinance today.
Thank you very much.
Hello. My name is Noni Olabisi, and I'm here today to advocate the passing of the mural. The mural ordinance has been over 10 years. I strongly support the version A, allowing the muralists to paint on single-family homes. I quit my job 7 years ago to nurture the gift that God has given me, and I am ready to paint. So I would love it if you would pass it. Thank you.
Nyla Oslania, the Hollywood Arts Counter. Nyla. Followed by Carlos Chavez of Pico Union Housing.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, City Council. I'm happy to be here in front of a new City Council with such strong representatives such as Mr. Krikorian and Mr. Price, who come from our doing such great things for the arts in our state. I am president of the Hollywood Arts Council, and it's been a long 10 years. We have in Hollywood some of the most beloved and internationally known murals, and it's about time that we did have more. I'm happy to say that I passed 8 murals on my way here today, and I saw not one piece of graffiti on any of those. That is not the issue. The issue is returning our walls to the people of Los Angeles and our public art, to our muralists, our master muralists, Kent Twitchell, Victor Henderson, Eloy Torres, Richard Wyatt, and a new generation to come forward from our youth. Thank you so much. I urge your support of this ordinance.
Carlos Chavez, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning. I'm an artist, and I moved to Los Angeles a few years ago because of the murals. I wanted to be part of the art scene here, and I'm here to support the mural ordinance. Murals improve and beautify our communities. I also believe that the Pico Union Housing Corporation, with their Graph Lab program, has definitely impacted the community and has provided a place for artists to go and produce their art and also just be a part of the art community there in downtown Los Angeles. So I greatly appreciate the opportunity that the Graph Lab has provided here for me to come here and speak with you. Basically, I just want to say let the art flourish and pass the mural ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, since there's only 7 seconds left, I want you to take these and put this in the file. Mr. Weezer, we're going to continue. Other members have some things to say as well. Mr. Cedillo of the 1st District.
Mr. President, I stand to speak in favor of this proposal. Murals are part and parcel of the social and cultural and historic fabric of this city. We should recognize that. Murals, you cannot see a movie about the city of Los Angeles, any movie that takes place in Los Angeles, without scenes of the murals. Kent Twitchell, you're a genius. We're honored by your presence. In addition to that, in particular, in my district, the 1st and the 14th, there's a special significance to the murals. Because the murals, as we talk today about Martin Luther King and the turbulent 60s and all those great idealists, there was a movement of muralists in the 60s on the east side of this town. And it was inspired by the great Mexican muralists, Rivera, Siqueiros, Orozco, Frida Kahlo, all the great painters and artists of that period. They inspired young Mexican Americans who called themselves Chicanos. And they inspired them to express themselves. It was our First Amendment expression. It gave us a sense of identity, meaning, and place. That's the significance of this motion today. And so we're not simply here talking about lifting an opportunity for muralists to return to paint, but we're talking about a process of people who want to identify themselves, who want to bring social integration, who want to bring democracy of ideas here to our great city. That's the meaning and significance. You're right. We are one of the great mural cities of the world. And so we must do all that we can. Let's keep in mind that there was nothing the muralists did when we put in the ban. No one said, oh, there's this bad mural or there's this trend or tendency. It had nothing to do with them. And yet we cast the net too wide and brought them in on a ban that was focused on commercial art. The ban wasn't focused on what these men and women do, what their contributions have been to the city. And so I'm a proponent of Measure A, but I'm happy with Measure B, right? As long as there's a recognition, and I recognize that not one size fits all. As glorious as the mural movement is on the east side, I recognize that there are other parts of the city that are uncomfortable, don't choose to have this form of artistic expression for whatever their reason, and they have rights too. And so we cannot construct a one-size-fits-all. We should recognize the contributions, the wealth, this incredible asset that we have, but on the other hand, we should recognize that there are other people, for their own choices, for their own reasons, who don't want this. And we can do that. I think this proposal gives us the opportunity to recognize that one size does not fit all. We will take the time to construct process and procedure, working with our council and with our leadership to make sure that that is in place. But today, we must make a statement that we must lift this ban, that they did not do anything wrong, and that they should be free to express themselves, that they have a dream, and that their dream is to have this opportunity so that they can express themselves as artists who have done nothing wrong other than make this great city even greater. I ask for an aye on this motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cito. Mr. Bonin of the 11th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am not a native of Los Angeles. I came here in 1991 in my mid-20s, and one of the ways I learned about Los Angeles and its history and its various neighborhoods and its various people was through murals and through the art of Los Angeles. I learned the history of Los Angeles by checking out the Tujunga Wash and the Great Wall of Los Angeles that was done by Judy Baca. And because of that, I was drawn to learn and explore more about the valley. I have many times gone on a half-day field trip to Mr. Cedillo's district or to Mr. Huizar's district and to see the murals there and to learn more about those neighborhoods. And I've been drawn to explore Los Angeles because of that, just as I have been drawn to explore Watts because of the Watts Towers, just as I have been drawn to explore the Fairfax neighborhood because of the Museum of Tolerance. There's a richness to the murals that we have in Los Angeles. I personally have a hard time relating to a lot of the art in some of our museums, but I actually connect and I feel sort of a quickening of my heartbeat when I see some of the murals that tell the stories of our diversity and our richness and our culture. And I'm proud I represent the district that includes not just Judy Baca and Spark, but Emily Winter and Francisco Letelier, some of the brilliant muralists in the city. But I also represent a number of other communities that are mainly single-family neighborhoods that don't share my taste and would certainly not appreciate me imposing my taste upon them. And it's difficult to strike a balance. We're a city of murals, but we're first and foremost a city of neighborhoods. And I want to commend Mr. Huizar and particularly Tanner of his staff for the work that they have done over a period of years trying to craft a solution that works and that suits different neighborhoods. I'm very proud that the various neighborhood councils in my district that have concerns about murals in single-family neighborhoods have not come up and said, please, no murals anywhere. That has not been the message. The response has been very prudent and very reasonable. And almost all of my neighborhood councils that have weighed in have said, let's go with Measure B. Let's make sure that people can have murals in places that are not visible from the public right-of-way. Let's make sure that we can find a way to accommodate everybody. And I'm very, very happy to see that. The folks in my district have stood up and said, some have said we want Measure A, but we'll be happy if we do Measure B today and get half a loaf. Most of them are saying, I would like to see Measure B with some caveats, that there be a quick opt-in process for people who want to participate, who are in single-family residences, and that we have a neighborhood consultation process that makes sure that in my district the Brentwood and the Palisades community councils, which are not certified neighborhood councils, get the same privilege as the certified neighborhood councils to weigh in. And a few other tweaks that we have some amending motions for on today. I also just very quickly want to underscore something Mr. Cedillo said, because I've been working in the city and working on public art stuff since the mid-90s. This ban did not go into place because we had a problem with too many murals. This ban did not go into place because we had swastikas across the street from temples. This ban went into place because of problems with commercial advertising. Our problem in the late 90s wasn't that we had too many murals. Our problem in the late 90s was that we weren't doing a good enough job maintaining the murals that we had. So I think this is not a perfect proposal before us today, but Measure B is a very good proposal. I think we can pass it, and I think there's some amending motions that will make it stronger and some more work we can do over the next few months to make it even better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. And Mr. Price of the 9th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I think we all agree that murals are a great way to add character and depth to a building and to the community, and often telling a story that depicts an event that's special to the community. I certainly am supportive of murals. In fact, I've got murals on my community service center. On the outside and on the inside, we have murals, and it's a very important expression of creativity in our community that we're proud of. I understand the complaint or the issue today revolves around the issue of murals being located on single-family homes. And I certainly believe that the owner of a single-family property should have the right to put a mural on if he or she wants to. In that tradition, you know, certainly there's a role for the community to play in making sure that there is maybe not agreement, but approval for the overall plan that's being proposed. So I certainly would be supportive of A or B, any of the variety of amendments that we're going to be presented with, that certainly allows murals on single-family homes, and that allows some kind of a process for the community to sign on or sign off. But I think the ban on them is long overdue. We should be going forward and let LA resume its rightful place as a leader in murals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not even going to express my own opinion on murals. I will express the opinion of my constituents, which is I've heard from a lot of folks. Unless I missed it, I did not hear even one single call or letter in support from anyone residing in my district. So I'm going to support my district in not wanting to see murals anytime soon in Council District 5. But if there's a way to help be supportive in the other areas that clearly do want it, like item 7F, I'm certainly open to that. And when we do actually go forward with a process, the one thing I think as a practical matter we need to try to lock down is when people put murals up, they often get graffitied. Anti-graffiti paint doesn't always do it. There should be, rather than after the fact trying to figure out how to do it, some commitment to having the muralist actually keep up the mural and touch it up. Because I've seen some murals that started out as great murals and wound up looking as god-awful eyesores, and we obviously want to avoid that in this process. So that's my one positive comment. I think this will be a great program if we do that. Hopefully, once we start in other districts and people see that it's not the evil that they may think it is, that then it may spread beyond the pilot area. But for now, that's the one thing I would support would be the pilot.
Mr. Parks of the 8th District.
Thank you very much. I was just wondering, could you just explain to the public on the issue of dealing with content, what the limits are and what they could expect? Because that's one of the big issues that we've been asked about.
Yes, Ken Fong, City Attorney's Office. When you're dealing with the First Amendment, what the U.S. Supreme Court says is sort of the cardinal rule under the First Amendment, and signage and murals and that sort of thing, that you can't regulate on the basis of content, because that goes against our democratic principles and against the First Amendment. So the courts have come up with a way of regulating murals and signage that doesn't really look at content. It's called time, place, and manner. So if you put in reasonable restrictions on murals, such as they can be located in certain discrete locations, they have to be only a certain size, they can only be a certain height, usually those type of regulations will pass constitutional muster. And that's what we're trying to do here, is have time, place, and manner regulations and not look at content.
Okay, but the key is that, so people are fully aware, content is not something that either Cultural Affairs or anyone else can regulate.
Oh, I don't think they want to look at content.
No, I don't know if they want to. I just want to make sure the public knows, so that it's not after the fact saying.
That's right. We don't want to look at content. We don't want to get into a First Amendment problem.
Because we get a significant number of complaints just on billboards and the messaging. And the fact of going back to the company and asking them would they refrain from putting assault weapons on billboards on Crenshaw Boulevard. And so there's people that are very sensitive to those messages. The one thing also, in looking at the issue of murals, the concern I have is that, and I certainly appreciate not having murals on single-family residences, but the added issue in my district is that we have a community that's built out and is fairly old as it relates to housing. So you could drive down the street and you can be in a single-family residence area, and then all of a sudden you have multifamily apartment buildings, and over time it's an array of different types of housing. So in some communities you might have single-family housing as a staple, but in others you have a multitude of housing arrangements. And so it would be a major effect in residential areas in my community if all of a sudden that newly finished apartment building, 4, 5, 6, 8 units, whatever, could have a mural in the middle of their single-family residence. And it doesn't appear either A or B controls that particular issue.
Well, yes. Version B does not allow murals on a single-family house on a single lot, but it would allow murals on anything larger than that. So if you had 2 dwelling units on a lot, you could have a mural under version B.
That's the concern, because
yes.
I think in earlier zoning, and particularly since, as our planning director knows, we've not dealt with community plans for decades. So we have an array of by right buildings that are sitting side by side with not a great deal of continuity. And so it would be a major concern in many parts of my community if you call it just residential zoning and not take into account the type of building that's in the residential zoning. And that's where I think we have a difficult time in trying to adjust or deal with either one of the versions.
Okay, understood.
Mr. Blumenfeld.
Thank you, and I certainly want to thank Mr. Huizar and the folks who are bringing this forward. This is, I think it's really important that we deal with this issue. I want to be able to say yes to artists. I want to see us lift this ban, but I'm not sure that the measure before us does it in the right way. I think we're very, very close to it. What I've heard from my constituents, and I've had a number of folks from different neighborhood councils and different groups, and it's been a mixed view. Folks generally want, and I've been proud, sort of as Mr. Bonner said, nobody's come and said we don't want to see any murals. But there's a lot of concern about what their neighborhood is going to look like, what's going to go up across the street from them. They want to have some more element of control over their own neighborhood. We live in neighborhoods. No person is an island. In fact, you have to spend more time looking at your neighbor's house than looking at your own house. So, I have, as to Mr. Park's point about the multifamily unit, I was thinking a similar kind of thing. I don't know how you differentiate between a single-family unit and a multifamily unit in terms of giving the rights to have a mural or block a mural. To me, it's sort of it's an artificial distinction. It's one really because the single-family folks have been more vocal that we're sort of carving them out, but really there's not a a rationale, as far as I can see, for distinguishing between the two. So I think we need an approach that allows murals in both single-family areas and multifamily areas, but does so in a more measured way. And particularly, one approach I thought of is have, and this is one of the amendments that's coming up, create a scenario where you get some sort of permission from your neighbors, not an absolute veto, but you get maybe 2/3 of the people in the view shed who have to look at the mural, who can see it with the naked eye, be able to sign off saying that they want something like this. Now, you would do it in a content-neutral way so that you don't violate the First Amendment, but there are ways to do it. The other issue is this question of opt-in and opt-out. A lot of folks in my community are concerned about both A and B because they're opt-out. So the community would have to organize to opt out of it as opposed to organize to opt into it. So that's why I've got concerns with both A and B in their present form. I would love to see us this go back to committee. There's a number of solutions that are out there. And I know that folks have been working on this for years. I'm a new council member. I've only been in office less than 2 months. I want to see this move forward quickly, but I also want to see us do it in the right way. And I think there is a right way, and I think that we're close to it. But getting the committee to focus on a way to create an authorization where the community gets buy-in, where the folks who are going to have those murals, who are going to look at them, feel comfortable about it. People have all sorts of fears, and most of them are not justified. What's going to be across the street? The person who lives across the street is going to put a giant, very inappropriate picture that's going to scare my child every morning when they wake up and look at it. People say that, and it's not... Mr. Chair, can I have order?
All right, that's a disorder. No talk. Please, thank you.
As I'm saying, this is not...
Sergeants, would you inform our guests that they have to remain and listen to the speakers? Thank you.
I'm not saying that that's a rational fear. I don't think it's a rational fear. But I'm raising it because these are fears that people have brought to me, and you can't just dismiss them as not being, as not important because people have these fears. And there are ways to create an environment that will make people comfortable and will ultimately allow for the proliferation of more murals. That's what I'd like to see. I love art. I love seeing murals. I want to see them in our community. I want to see them in our single-family residents. I want to see them in our multifamily residents. But I want to see them in a way that makes the neighbors comfortable and creates a process whereby they feel like they have some control over what's happening in their neighborhood.
Thank you on that. I appreciate that comment.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Farrell, the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to my colleague, Jose Huizar, and your staff for this work in the City Attorney's Office, Planning Department, Cultural Affairs. I love murals. I love art. I think everyone at this horseshoe does. And I just want to give a couple of examples of real-life experience over the past 12 years in the 13th District. One is a mural that was at the intersection of Sunset and Lemoyne for a number of years that had no anti-graffiti coating protection on it whatsoever. It began getting tagged, and then it got more tagged and tagged again, and it sat that way for a number of years. The city was powerless to do anything about it because of the 90-day notification. We couldn't locate the artist. So for years, that mural sat there and mocked the entire community, what was once an incredibly beautiful mural. Eventually, we located the artist. They were notified. We were able to paint it out, unfortunately, and vines are now growing over it. Another example is in my community of Glassell Park, where I actually helped paint a mural back in 2001, and we put a graffiti coating on it. It was part of the Neighborhood Beautification Grant, and it sits there to this day because although it's been tagged probably a total of 30 times over the last 12 years, we've removed the vandalism, applied a new coat, and removed the vandalism several times over. The point I'm making is that murals, no matter how beautiful they are, no matter how culturally significant they are, they get vandalized. That's the real world that we're living in. I want to make sure that these incredible works of art that we have across the city, and that we will have again once the ban is lifted, are protected. And I noticed that measure is not part of the ordinance, and I think it absolutely needs to be, and that's something that we have an amending motion for as well. And there are my colleagues have addressed concerns that I have as well. Having said that, So much work has gone into this over the last couple of years. I do not want to squander that work. Certainly don't want to hold this up. I think it needs to be additionally refined administratively. I think we're at an awkward moment here, but I'm not going to hold this up. I will support Measure B, the B portion, and move forward. But we absolutely, for the sake of the artists, for the sake of protecting our neighborhoods from this vandalism that they are forced to stare at for years, we need additional refinements, and I think we can get there. So I have all the confidence and faith and trust in my colleague, Councilmember Huizar, that we can get there. Thank you.
Mr. Englander of the 12th District.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. LaBonge. This is, from far away, from a distance, this would seem like a very simple issue, that you either support artists or you don't, that you support communities or you don't. But this is a much more complicated and difficult issue than it should be, quite frankly. But it's one that we've been very engaged in. And these are great conversations, quite frankly, because what we're talking about is opening up opportunities for those who want them and protecting communities from those who also want them or don't want them in terms of murals. This is the kind of discussion and time we should spend, quite frankly, in this building around these chambers on what it means for a community. What is the character of a community? That's what we should be spending a lot of time on. Infrastructure, public safety, our communities, protecting our youth and seniors. These are the things that make this city great. And so I want to thank you all for all the ideas and concerns and thoughts. The ideas of lifting this ban means a lot. And I've worked a lot on this as well, and I want to thank Mr. Huizar for his work and effort, and particularly in the passion of my newest seatmate, Mr. Cedillo, and how articulate he was when he opened up this conversation and about the history and reminding us what Los Angeles is really about. I've met with many of the artists, and they're fantastic. Great people doing good things, helping at-risk youth, intervention and prevention programs. It's much more than just art. I've also met with a lot of my constituents in my district, and I'll tell you right now, very few, if any, said no murals at all. In fact, we are right now working with the Museum of the San Fernando Valley that we're launching a major mural program, not restoration, new murals in Northridge. Yes, in Northridge. I can see the looks on your faces. Where we're going to have public art and murals depicting the history of Northridge. And it's wonderful. And so we're really looking forward to that. So right now, really the discussion doesn't boil down to, do you want murals? Do we not want them? Is it community versus this community or versus that community? It's how we get there on the same page, because while it's difficult to come up with a one-size-fits-all piece of legislation for a city as diversified and different by community as we are, which is what makes Los Angeles such a great place, is the very communities that make up our districts and the city. But trying to come up with a piece of legislation that protects the spirit and the interest of artists and culture and what makes sense, to also protect communities' interests that perhaps don't want them in every area, and coming up with that balance is very, very difficult and very delicate. And that's why this is such a great conversation. There's a lot of amendments before us. I did a deep dive into this. As you all know, I sent a letter to all 95 neighborhood councils about a year ago and said, this is coming, get involved, get engaged, take a position, look into it. We got a lot of responses and a lot of information back on that. Not all of that has been vetted. I support with moving along something today. I think it's important. We've been stuck on this for a long time. While we do move something along, and we have an opportunity to protect those very communities and coming up with that balance that still want to work those issues out. And I think that's critically important, that we pass something along while still protecting those communities that also want to have weigh in and strike a balance. And so I think we can do that. And so I look forward to the discussion ahead of us.
We're almost there to complete the discussion. The great councilwoman of the very special 6th District, Nury Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, when I was on the City Council, I had an opportunity to work with a lot of you.
And I want to thank you. Some of you played an integral part in helping me craft the motion to create Arts at the Court at LAUSD. And so many of you were involved in the creation of very focused art schools in my district, which I'm very proud of. And so we're looking for avenues to keep students and young people interested, and not only learning, but to be positive role models in their community. I will be supporting this motion today. But most importantly, we want to continue the dialogue with the arts community. We want to continue to be partners in this and be respectful of neighborhoods wherever these murals are at. But we are the creative capital of the world, and we need to capitalize on that. And we need to ensure that our families and our young people have an avenue to express themselves and to be good role models and positive role models in the community. So thank you, all of you, for the help that you've lent me in the past, and I'll continue to be helpful as much as I can on the City Council. Thank you for being here.
All right, Mr. Huizar to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. And many of my colleagues have stated that this is not an easy issue. It's a complicated one, but I think the time and effort has been put into this to at least move forward today with what we have. There are several motions that have been made. I would ask that some of those may need to go back to committee so that at least we get the main item out today, and then we refine it. And it's not going to be the last time. We're going to continue to refine it as we move forward. This is the first huge step that we need to take to at least get this out there. Again, thank you to all my colleagues who have contributed, my Plum colleagues, who Cedillo and Englander, who and Reyes when he was here as a Plum member as well. All of them contributed to what we see here today, and also all of you who have contributed today. I think that's what policy making is about, is everyone contributing, listening to our constituents, and coming up with the best product possible. Now, we're all not going to agree on what's the best way to move forward, but we do have a main core ordinance that I think we should move forward today. Again, just like Mr. Bonin mentioned how the murals gave him an education, I've often talked about how I was that second generation, Mr. Cedillo. After the murals all went up in Bow Heights in East LA, where I grew up, where I learned my history, I saw characters and figures on the walls there that I wasn't learning about in the classroom, but I certainly went home, asked about them, went to school and asked about them. It was a huge history lesson. It was also an area in Bow Heights where, instead of having graffiti up, you put up beautiful murals, colorful ones with positive messages for the local neighborhood. It is not only a way of beautifying the communities, but it's a way of impacting our young people in ways we probably don't understand now as adults. And we did when we were younger, when we see those beautiful murals up in our communities and how impactful that may be to us. This ordinance is going to help this city in numerous ways. As well as economic development, tourism, a lot of things that we know is going to help passing this today. So, Mr. President, I ask that we go through these items one by one. Items C and E are really the same motion. E is just the ordinance that incorporated Plum's recommendations from the Citywide Planning Commission, and item C is recommending that we move forward with item version B. We're asking that we come back with an expedited process in 30 days to allow the opt-in provisions for local neighborhoods. I would ask that in item C as well, we amended to ask that we come back to a joint committee with the Arts Committee, as Mr. O'Farrell pointed out. He correctly pointed out that this all should be considered in the Arts Committee, given the artistic component to this. So we would come back after a joint committee hearing. So items C and E are the main items. I would ask that we vote aye on those, and I ask for an aye on all of them, except on item D, Mr. Blumenfield's motion. I think that would change some of the things we have worked on. If we could do a report back, we would love to consider it in our joint committee that we have, Mr. Blumenfield, and we could move that forward today. Would you be okay with a report back, or do you? That's right. Okay. So if we do a report back in item D, I would ask that we have an aye vote on all the amendments that have been put forward.
All right, Mr. Huizar, we got that down. Mr. Clerk, are you prepared?
Where's F?
Mr. Krikorian.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think Mr. Huizar has presented a good path forward here with regard to the motions. I didn't catch you mentioning number G, item 7G, which calls for a report before the Joint Committee on several matters. And as to that matter, that motion which was brought by Mr. O'Farrell, I would propose that we add a fourth element, which actually Mr. O'Farrell raised, as well as others, which is the maintenance and upkeep requirements for murals, and that should also be part of the discussion that is captured.
Very good. We'll take that into consideration.
Yes.
Thank you.
So if that would be acceptable as a friendly amendment, then
friendly amendment it is. The clerk has it down. He's a friendly guy.
City Attorney, if I might, I just want to add clarification about motion 7E. All that does is it substitutes a revised version of version B, which has a disapproval from the Director of Planning because it was significantly changed from the CPC. So the significance to you is that it will change the required vote from your body. It won't be a majority vote, it'll be a two-thirds vote.
Two-thirds vote. Very good on that. Mr. Englander?
Just a matter of point of clarification on what we're about to vote on. I appreciate you getting your arms around this, Mr. Huizar. And so it'll be a vote on C and E, just so I understand this, and those will go to the Joint Committee. So in essence, we're passing B as amended. And then D, F, and G is amended to add Mr. Krikorian's fourth item of maintenance and upkeep. D, F, and G would all go to the Joint Committee, including Mr. Blumenfeld's motion on D, which would be a report back to that Joint Committee. Is that all correct?
Yes.
Mr. Clerk, answer the question for the councilman of the 12th District.
That's not my understanding, sir. I believe C and E were to be moved and adopted.
C and E move forward and adopt.
C and E we're going to move forward and adopt.
Clarified. Correct. All right, Mr. Huizar, we're ready to vote. So, Mr. Clerk, it's up to you now.
Guide us through.
Guide us through on the vote.
Mr. President, then if there's no objections, we should first vote on C and E.
All right, let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes, 1 no.
14 ayes, 1 no. All right, very good. Forthwith on that one. Next one.
The ordinance will go over 1 week for a second read, sir.
Okay, I got that. All right, next.
Why is that, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. President, that...
We had 1 no?
Yeah. All right, hold on. There was some confusion. Hold on a second. Mr. Clerk, would you speak to the microphone, Mr. Blumenfeld?
The amendments in terms of bringing them back to... No, I did not. But if E represents the underlying ordinance except for the one provision, then I would wish to be recorded as a no vote on that.
Okay.
We can be 13. All right, and we can change his vote for that matter, sir.
No objection, 13-2. Okay. Therefore, the rest, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. President, that leaves motions D, F, and G before council.
Which all goes to committee. Mr. Parks, you have one to add? Mr. Parks, if you could speak in the microphone, do you want to?
I just want an explanation of what happened and went from 14-1 to 13-2, and I didn't hear the explanation.
In terms of the underlying, as expressed, I have concern with the opt-out versus the opt-in, and trying to go this other route in terms of specific authorization, which is where what I'd like to see. I didn't realize that the vote being taken wasn't just on the amendments, but was on the underlying provision. So I wanted to change from an aye to a no for that amendment, and then I'll vote aye on the amendments.
Okay, we got that, Mr. Parks. You satisfied? That's good. Okay, Mr. Clerk, go ahead.
Again, sir, that leaves motions D, F, and G before you for consideration.
Which all go to committee. Correct, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
All go to committee and some joint committee. Correct. Mr. Krikorian.
And number D is a report back. That's been amended to be a report back. Yeah. Well, it's going back. They're all going back to committee. That's
correct. Yeah. Mr. Krikorian.
If I may, Mr. Huizar, I'm trying to read this quickly, but I think F and G actually call for the reports to the Joint Committee. So I think we do need to vote on F and G in order to create the Joint Committee process that will hear those reports. Am I mistaken about that? Or? And then D would be referred to the committee without a vote today.
Yes, we could do that. Yes.
All right, we got all that. Mr. Clerk, you ready to get this vote down?
Yes, sir. Then at this point, then we'd be moving F and G as amended.
F and G as amendment.
Yes.
Okay, so it's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Very good.
And, Mr. President, that leaves item D. You can either open that up for a vote or refer it without...
I'll refer it. We've been voting a lot today. I'll refer it right to committee. Okay.
And without objection, sir.
Without objection.
Very good, sir.
Okay, so that completes the task. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming down, the artists and all. And what's before us, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. President, that leaves item 33. It was a matter scheduled for closed session.
Mr. Krikorian, item 33.
Experience.
Kenny, come on, Kenny, you got to get the mic.
Mr. President, the question that Mr. Parks had on number 33 has been resolved, and Budget and Finance recommends approval of the City Attorney's recommendation.
Very good.
In open session.
Sergeants, for the benefit, ladies and gentlemen, and those who came in, thank you for your tone it down. We still have some more issues before us. So on this issue, Mr. Blumenfeld. Item 20 forthwith. Thank you.
Oh, items 19 and 20. Sorry.
19 and 20 forthwith for Mr. Blumenfeld. Mr. Cedillo. Folks, if you could hold it down back there.
Housing will be moved to 130.
Housing moved to 130. Thank you.
Mr. President, 33 should still be voted upon, and
right.
if I may, in the case entitled Morris and Pesci versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $2 million in settlement.
Very good. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
14 ayes. Next item.
Mr. President, Council has motions for posting and referral.
So ordered.
The desk is clear.
Any announcements, members? Any announcements? The only announcements I have is tomorrow we'll celebrate the 76th anniversary of the Griffith Park Carousel, and you can ride for $3 between 4:30 and 7. Come to Griffith Park and celebrate the 76th anniversary of the historic carousel. Mr. O'Farrell, any announcement? No announcements. Any adjourning motions? We have adjourning motions. Sergeant, all rise for adjourning motions.
Okay.
I will rise for adjourning motions at the time. Members, I call on Councilman O'Farrell.
All right, colleagues. I'm adjourning today's council for Nick Gadia. Nick was one of the original leaders and founders of Justice for Filipino American Veterans and the Association of Widows, Relatives, and Advocates for Equality, and a devoted community activist in historic Filipino town. Nick was born in the province of Tarlac. He joined the guerrilla movement in 1943 and served under LAFM's East Central Luzon guerrillas area after the war in 1945. After the war, he joined the new Philippine Scouts under the U.S. Army and was deployed in Okinawa for garrison duty. When the Scouts were disbanded during the formation of the new Philippine Republic, Gadia joined the Philippine Constabulary. As a Filipino veteran, he became active with the December 7th movement in 1993, the Society of Guerrilla and Scouts, Inc., where he was elected as commander succeeding Jack Vergara in 2010 and 2011, and later with the Justice for Filipino American Veterans in 1998. Nick was always ready to speak at rallies and school forums. He would advocate on behalf of his organization from Sacramento to Washington, D.C., and from Los Angeles to San Francisco. One time, he and his author were stopped by a motorcycle cop for speeding on the highway to San Francisco. They were given a speeding ticket after he said, "We are American veterans on our way to talk with Senator Pelosi." She's a congresswoman, but that's okay. That's why we're in a rush. He declared many times his willingness to work with his fellow veterans until his death. Nick will be remembered as a jolly good fellow who loved to sing and tell stories of his war exploits and was always a lively resource for Philippine history as well as current events. He was always ready for discussions as long as you could bear to listen to him. Nick Gadea passed away Sunday, August 4th, 2013, and it was a great honor to actually get to know Nick over the past several years. I adjourn this council session in his memory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Farrell. No other adjourning motions? We will go ahead to serve the city well and remember those who went before us. Thank you so much.